Patrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Welcome back to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm your host, Ben Blessington. Joining me now, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Mr. Money, Kyle Fahey. Kyle, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Training camp is underway. We had a very successful bonus episode with Manish Mehta. You guys should definitely go listen to that. And we have football tomorrow night, which is going to be so fantastic. I am going to climax, to say the least. We just had like a dump off. It's going to be, yeah.
When we have a guest, Kyle tries to be normal, and then when the guest is gone, he returns to his normal state. Yes, as Kyle mentioned, we recorded a special bonus podcast with Manish Mehta Tuesday morning. We were going to edit it into this episode, but then we realized, due to scheduling, Wednesday morning we had a practice. We didn't want some of the stuff he was saying.
We didn't want to get beat by breaking news, basically.
Well, that, and it's just we didn't want, if there was anything that happened Wednesday, it's for the pod to be late. So we decided, you know what, we did an hour with them, which we weren't expecting. Why not just release it? So yes, you can go check out our podcast with Manish Mehta. It's just a special bonus podcast, exclusive interview with Manish Mehta of the New York Daily News. You can find that on Turn on the Jets, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. SoundCloud is another one. You can find all of our episodes there, but especially go check out that episode because it's going to be driving some of our topics for tonight. And without further ado, Kyle, I guess we'll just hop into it. We're going to go to the callers straight away because we have a caller who has to get off the line. He's a VIP member of TOJ, Paulie Bruce, who started his own podcast. Kyle, I don't know if you've known this.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of my favorite ideas that I've heard for a podcast. So we'll bring on Paulie. I know he's been
friend
on
of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast, Paulie, and I know he's explained it before, but we're going to have him on. We'll plug his show, and we're going to talk some Jets football. So, Paulie, without further ado, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How's it going tonight?
We're doing well. As Kyle mentioned, we have football for the first time tomorrow night. Normally the Hall of Fame game isn't that exciting, but, we got Lamar Jackson in it tomorrow. And, it's exciting in the fact that football's back, but it's normally a pretty boring game. But we got Lamar Jackson back to watch tomorrow night. The Jets are back in training camp. It's good. The Jets have their green and white scrimmage this Saturday. So, Paulie, we're very excited to talk about some Jets. We'll hop into it and talk about pretty much what everybody has been discussing, which is the quarterbacks. Sam Darnold held out over the weekend, returned to camp on Monday, didn't have practice Tuesday, and was back today. All reports have been that, he's been up there with McCown. I mean, McCown seems to be head and shoulders kind of above the rest of the guys. He has a year in the offense. He's been playing this position for almost 2 decades now. He's been everywhere. He's seen it all. So he has the advantage. But Darnold is showing, why the Jets drafted him. Paulie, I wanted to ask you, based off what Manish Mehta said in our podcast yesterday, is he said from all indications that he's gotten from people close to the situation, people who are with Sam and talk to Sam every day, they believe that Sam Darnold will be the Week 1 quarterback, that he will be ready, that the Jets, if he's anywhere close, because they know he's not going to be better than McCown, he won't have the number of years that McCown has. If he's anywhere close, Darnold will be the Week 1 starting quarterback. Paulie, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know there's a segment of Jets fans that want the quarterback to sit, want to go with the old school, have the quarterback watch and learn and then go and play. But with recent successes of guys like Russell Wilson and Carson Wentz and Jared Goff and et cetera, maybe we might buck the trend. As Daniel Eisen, another podcast,
very good tie-in there.
Thank you. Another podcast host on TOJ. Might say. Paulie, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
So if it's anywhere close, Darnold is going to be the starter. I don't expect Teddy Bridgewater to be on the roster Week 1 if that's the case. McCown is what he is. We all know that. He's in here to show Darnold the ropes. But I don't think that there's any benefit for Darnold not to be the starter Week 1. If the competition is going down to the wire and it's close, he's the starter. If he looks like he's a little bit behind, then maybe they roll McCown out there for the first 4 weeks get through the Jaguar game and then put him out there. But if he's going to go out there each day and showing that he's learning from mistakes he's made the day before, there's no reason that Darnold shouldn't be the Week 1 starter on Monday night in Detroit.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you there. I think that, and Joe Caparoso has written a few articles on this, basically just even if the rookie quarterback struggles in his first year, that experience is so invaluable to him. And you look at the analytics behind it is of guys rookie quarterbacks who play more than half the season in their first year versus those who don't. The success rate for the guys who play is much higher than the guys who don't. I think that, Todd Bowles is an old-fashioned coach in some sense. I think he has some things that are, a little out of date. But the one thing is that people are forgetting is that he did give Christian Hackenberg and Bryce Petty every chance to win the starting job last offseason. Josh McCown did one series in the preseason and then was done. And then he gave Hackenberg the next 2 starts, and he wanted Hackenberg to prove that he could be the starting quarterback. Unfortunately, our drafted quarterback could not live up to the expectations, and it was very obvious that they could not roll out there with him. With Sam Darnold, I believe it's going to be different. I believe he's more ready. I think that's pretty obvious and evident. I think you're right. I think that if it's anywhere close, he should be the Week 1 starting quarterback on Monday Night Football. He's going to throw interceptions. He's going to make mistakes. But I think that's part of the learning curve with Darnold. I think the more reps he gets, the faster he's going to be an elite quarterback. Moving on Oh, yeah, go ahead.
That's the thing. That's the thing, too, is, people have to understand, he's a rookie quarterback. He's going to throw interceptions. I mean, I hate using Peyton Manning for reference when it comes to anything, but Peyton Manning in his rookie season threw 22 interceptions. So turnovers are going to happen with a rookie quarterback, but he's not going to gain any experience on the sideline with a clipboard. So I have no trial by fire. Let him get out there. Let him learn. Let him learn from his mistakes so he can if he has a game where he throws 3 interceptions, at least if he goes and he sees the film, he can build on that for the following week. He can't do that if he's watching McCown do that and then going over his film. So he does need to be out there, I think, and that's the only way that he's going to be able to start development from day one.
Yeah, and Paulie, just so you know, I think your mic was kind of cutting in and out there for a little bit. It sounds kind of muffled, but I can understand what you're saying, so I don't know if that's something on your end or on our end. But, everything you said is right, and I think that Bowles is going to get this one right.
Wait, you didn't hear me at all?
I could hear you. Now you're much
No, we could hear you. It's much better, though.
We could hear you, but yes, as one of our listeners.
A Peanuts teacher.
You sounded like a Peanuts teacher for a little bit there, but we could still kind of understand you. You just sound like you had a sock.
Shout out to Mike. That was pretty solid of a joke.
Anyways, but we could still understand you. I think he's going to get it right. I think Bowles does have an affinity for McCown, so I could definitely see a situation where McCown, starts. But I fully expect. I agree with Manish Mehta. I fully expect Darnold to be the Week 1 starter. Talking about the other guy in the quarterback room, Teddy Bridgewater. Manish seemed pretty confident that and he's right, that the Jets should and will trade him if a quarterback goes down in preseason. Because as he pointed out, and this is something I've been saying since they signed him, what is the benefit to having Teddy Bridgewater on the team? He signed a 1-year deal, and you have Sam Darnold waiting in the wings. So if you play him and he's good, are you going to re-sign him? Or no, you're not, because he's going to command a lot more money, and you have your 3rd overall pick waiting in the wings. So it's either, yes, you could play him, and yes, could he be better than Josh McCown? Potentially. He's younger. He's a few years off a Pro Bowl. I think he's a valuable asset, but I just don't understand why you'd play him. Somebody put it as the Jets can be dumb good or smart bad, and meaning you can play Bridgewater and potentially squeeze out an extra win or two, or you can play Darnold, get him the reps. He might struggle. You might cost yourself a few games, but you're getting him the reps and you're setting yourself up for 2019. What are your thoughts on what the Jets should do with Teddy Bridgewater heading into the first preseason game next week?
So here's my thing. Bridgewater is a great guy. He's been through a lot to try to get back to be a starting quarterback. He wants to be a starting quarterback. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen here. I mean, the Jets' plan is plain and simple. It's Sam Darnold. I don't know what they could fetch for him. It all depends on what a team values him at. But there's no reason he should be, like I said in the last segment, there's no reason he should be on the Jets roster in Week 1. It just makes no sense, because it's either going to be McCown starting and then Darnold playing or Darnold starting and we're off. Like I said, I would like Teddy to get an opportunity. It just depends on what a team values him at and what they want to give up. Now, you've got people have suggested that, the Jaguars should trade for him. Now, whatever you may think of Blake Bortles, they just gave him a contract extension, so I don't see them trading for a quarterback. But what they could do is maybe not a pick, but something that I've been yelling for since a draft a couple years ago is a player like Dante Fowler Jr., who the Jaguars clearly seem like they're looking to move on from after next season because they didn't use the fifth-year option on him. Maybe that's something the Jets could entertain, but it's just what team needs a quarterback right now. So you got to let it play out, and hopefully the Jets can get some draft capital for him. But there's just no point of him being on the Jets Week 1 roster. There really isn't.
No, I definitely agree with you there. You mentioned edge rusher. Before you go, I want to talk a little bit about guys who aren't necessarily on the Jets roster, but some guys that, I think Jets Twitter has their eye on. Before we get to edge rusher, we'll talk about probably the most likely of all these guys we're going to talk about, Bashaud Breeland, who is a corner for the Redskins, has had a pretty solid, good young career, signed a pretty solid deal with the Panthers, then got hurt, and they basically, waived their contract with him, and he's been a free agent since. There's a report that the Jets have interest in him. He even posted a photo of him at, MetLife Stadium when the Jets played the Redskins in 2015. What are your thoughts on potentially adding Bashaud Breeland to the secondary? How much better do you think it would make this cornerback room from what it is right now to what it could be with Breeland?
Adding somebody like Breeland, especially this late, the secondary would go from good to great. He instantly becomes the second best corner on the team after Tremaine Johnson. And it secondary and just adds to it. Now, there's reports out of camp that Derrick Jones is impressing and the Jets do love him, and that's great because that means we're developing a player that we've drafted. But if you can add a talent like Breeland, that's especially this late in the game, if you're going to get him on low money. It's probably going to be a one-year deal because he's going to want to try and cash in free agency next year. But maybe you could, do a deal with a team option for the second year, which will give him, maybe $7-8 million next year because the Jets are going to have that space. So it would be a great add, and it's something that I do actually hope they could get done.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Another guy that I think Jets Twitter is talking about, and I don't think this is going to happen, but you mentioned edge rusher, and it kind of spurring this question, so I guess I'd throw it in. Khalil Mack is currently in a contract dispute with the Oakland Raiders. Obviously, one of the top edge rushers, in today's game. What exactly do you think about the Jets' chances of potentially adding a guy like that to their roster? There's reports that Gruden and Mack haven't even talked since Gruden became the head coach, that Mack is very frustrated with his contract. Gruden is clearly not really respecting him as the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year that he was. What are your thoughts on the Jets potentially trading for him? What would you give up? I mean, obviously this is a pipe dream, and you'd think that now that we're in training camp, we have actual content, we probably would stay away from these. But you mentioned edge rushers. Jets Twitter's talking about it. I thought I'd give it to you, the Jets Twitter legend you are, Paulie.
So here's the thing: as much as I love Mack, and it would be a great addition, depending on cost. But even then, maybe let's get a little crazy. But we've seen over the last couple of years that Todd Bowles' defense doesn't really use / need an edge rusher. He creates pressure and blitzes in his own creative and unique way, and it seems like his defense doesn't really need an edge rusher. Now, would it be silly not to get one like a Khalil Mack, or next year in free agency a guy like Fowler? I think it would be absolutely ridiculous not to address it. But like I said, it's something that they've avoided and tried to do with other things based on Bowles' concept. So, I mean, if it's an opportunity, I'm sure McCagnon will look at it, and if it's something that they can do, I'm sure they'll try their best to do it. But like I said, it doesn't seem like an edge rusher is really in the philosophy. So it's hard to tell until you hear, Jets have contacted Raiders, so then you're like, okay, yeah, they're interested.
Oh, do we? Okay, good. That wasn't just me. All right, there we go.
Kyle,
you guys there?
Yeah,
I don't know
texted Kyle. Kyle was mad at me because he was supposed to ask the last question. I didn't hear him. So then I was like, okay, sorry. I didn't hear him talk, so I asked it. And then I was like, okay, Kyle, all you. Buddy, come on. Fell asleep at the wheel there.
I said everything I said, and then it was just silence. And I was like,
yeah. Well, I was waiting for Kyle. I mean, come on.
I haven't heard the last minute. Like, everybody just cut out for me.
Oh,
that's weird.
Well, then never mind. That's a technical difficulty.
Come on, guys.
Oh,
Kyle,
okay.
Sorry, Mike is yours to ask a question. We were awaiting your first question of the night.
So last I heard was Khalil Mack. You were talking about the Raiders, like if the Jets and Raiders like reached out to each other or something like that. But I want to go back to the Breeland thing because I think you put out a hot but incorrect take that Bashaud Breeland would be the number 2 corner on this team behind Johnson, when I think Morris Claiborne, who played as above average level number 1 last year.
I agree. Claiborne is a hell of a player, but see, here's the problem. Every year he plays at a high level, he gets hurt. So if you're not available, I can't sit there and say that you're the second best corner on the team because he's proven that he can't stay healthy. So if Breeland comes in, easily number 2 corner on the team. And you want to know what? If Claiborne plays at the same level for all 16 games next year, then the secondary is going to be shut down.
I agree, but at the same time, I would say that Claiborne only missed like 1.5 games last year, and then that the Jets have one of the best, if not the best, health and care regimes, in the entire league, widely recognized and widely gets results. I mean, when's the last time you think about players who the Jets have? When is the last time we've really had like a major injury?
Don't jinx it.
I know.
Don't jinx it.
I know.
Let's go, Ben. Let's just cut this off because he's trying.
Yeah, I'm gonna jinx us.
Yeah, you've tried to put the bad juju on.
But Kyle, to answer your question, probably 2012 when we lost Holmes, Revis. I think there was somebody else we lost too. We kind of lost our aging core for a good amount of the season. But sorry, back to you.
Different training staff though, for the most part.
Are you sure about that, or?
New regime, new training staff, new weight coach.
All right.
Guys change. I mean, you're talking about guys from 6 years ago. Maybe there's 1 or 2 sticking around. I know for a fact the weight and conditioning coach has changed at least 2 times.
All right, go on.
No, go. This is the Jet take. This isn't the health and wellness take.
All right, did you have a question, or what is going on here?
What do you mean?
This is like throwing Christian Hackenberg into the starting lineup right now. I gave you the baton to ask a question.
For what?
Oh my God! Paulie, did you see this?
Yeah. Hey, you guys got to get Scott on here because
that was. Kyle, I'm thoroughly disappointed in your performance thus far.
We were having an argument.
All right.
Nobody was going to respond or anything?
Well, I guess not. Well, because you cut it off and started talking about health and wellness. Paulie, I guess we'll close with one question, and then we'll let you go. We know you got to go. Let's talk about the Jets' rookie class and the performance they've had in training camp thus far. Obviously, it's only been 5 practices, but from all reports, and you never know about training camp tweets and whatnot, pretty much every rookie, outside of, I guess we haven't heard too much about Fatukasi, but every rookie we've seen a lot of positive tweets about. From Darnold, from Manish saying he expects Darnold to be the starter just based off how he's wowed them throughout this process and before they even got him in training camp, to Shepard getting a majority of the first-team reps, Herndon being the best tight end in camp, Cannon just absolutely destroying Rawls in the running back competition, displaying his speed, and Perry Nickerson showing up as a starting cornerback, especially with Buster Screen's injury today. Perry Nickerson looks like he could be sliding into that starting slot cornerback position potentially in the preseason. Paulie, what's your thoughts on this McCagnon draft class? I know in years past, especially people like to point to 2015, his first draft class, there's a chance that there could only be one guy remaining from that draft class when the season starts. Right now, there's technically, I believe, 3. Leonard, is Deion Simon still on the team? Does anybody?
Yeah, I believe he is.
I believe he is. Well, Leonard Williams is on the team for sure. Lorenzo Malden is fighting for his job right now. And then I believe Deion Simon is buried in a deep defensive line battle. But people like to point to that draft class and say, look, he hit on the Leonard Williams pick for the most part. but he really did not hit on any other pick. His late-round drafting has been bad. Then you look at the next year, it got marginally better. 2017, it got marginally better. And now 2018, it's looking like all these guys could contribute. I did a question of the day today on the Jet Take account. Follow us at the Jet Take on Twitter. And there were leads. I mean, you look at the 2017 rookie draft class, think about the amount of guys that did not contribute at all last year. From Leggett to Donahue to Derrick Jones to Jeremy Clark. There's an astronomical amount of guys. Darius Stewart, I was trying to think of his name. Darius Stewart. Those are 5 guys in your draft class that didn't really even see the field at all. Now, some of them were injuries, some of them were other reasons. But what are your thoughts on McCagnon's draft class thus far? Obviously, it's a small sample size, but even going back to April when the picks were made, how do you feel about it, and what type of impact do you see them having in 2018?
So, first things first, it's been 5 practices. I have a 3-year rule that I always use in regards to players in draft classes. So I don't fully give an assessment, if you will, until after 3 years. But this draft comes down to Darnold. Obviously, you want the other players like Shepard and Nickerson and the other guys to pan out. But this entire draft, it comes down to Darnold, whether he's a hit or a miss. All signs point to hoping that he's a hit. But we won't know until, the lights are on and the games are being played. So, hopefully they're all contributors in 3 years down the line. But you got to really hope that, players like Nickerson, Shepard, and Darnold come out, and that's your building foundation from this draft class.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and especially with the first part, the 5 practices part. I can definitely remember people talking about, Bryce Petty after his first rookie minicamp practice, and how he was amazing and whatnot. And at TOJ we're doing the David Clowney award for what was it? What is it called again? I'm going to get it in a second. It's basically success that doesn't matter. You can go to David Clowney. You can look to Chris Owusu. There's always guys.
David Nelson.
David Nelson's another one. Well, David Nelson at least had some sort of success in the regular season. There's always
David Nelson's best success in the regular season is getting a first down to crush the Jets in Week 17.
All right. No, I know what you're talking about. But no, in 2013, at least for Gino, he was solid. I'm saying, there's always training camp darlings, and I don't expect every pick in this draft class to pan out. But I did think at the time that it was a very solid draft class. The only pick I was really kind of skeptical on was Shepard due to his age, his level of competition, ignoring the edge rusher. But even he is looking like, one, an absolute stand-up guy, which is always love to cheer for guys that you enjoy rooting for. And B, he looks like he's going to be an absolute monster. Canadian Thanos, as his nickname is. Paulie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Can you shout out your podcast? Where can people find it? Explain the concept for those who may not have heard it in the past. And where can people follow you yourself on Twitter?
Yeah, so myself and fellow TOJ members, Delvin, and obviously producer Scott, we've got the What's Your Point podcast. It's basically a debate show back and forth where we debate whether it be, we've had some fun topics like which Jets player would win a Royal Rumble down to, debating over whose fault it was for the Darnold holdout between the Jets or the agent. So it's been a blast. I've been told by a few people that it's the best Jets show on Tuesdays. I can't confirm or deny that, but that's what it's.
God damn. Oh, boy.
Hey, listen, I'm just going based off what's been told to me. That's not me saying that. So I'm happy to do it. It's been fun the first 2 weeks. Episode 3 next Tuesday, we've got Chris Nimbley from the Jets Insider. He'll be our guest judge. So it's been a fun ride the first 2 weeks. I've lost both weeks, so I've got to come back swinging for week 3 to see if I can get in the win column. But you can follow the podcast. It's at TOJ_WYP. Our show is broadcasted on the Play Like a Jet feed on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. Everything is it's been fun. Proud to be a member of TOJ and looking forward to continuing doing this.
Paulie, I'm just saying, if you need a judge who, might, I don't know, help you out a little bit.
I'll have my people contact your people.
Yeah. Just
Paulie, you're like the 2017 Jets. You started out with two big L's, but you're going to bounce back and get a nice 3-game winning streak. Paulie, it was great having you on the show, man. We look forward to hearing from you again, and good luck on your podcast.
Yeah, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
We talk about how Paulie just murdered people. Just like eviscerated
I think he
them.
said everything that he needed to say. Yeah. All right, and he mentioned, I'm glad he mentioned it because I forgot to do this in the plugs, although I did bring it up, I think, last week. What we're trying to do during training camp, there's about 5 weeks, is we want to have a different beat writer on each week. Obviously, this week was Manish Mehta. Of course, Mehta was supposed to be on this podcast, but due to the scheduling, when he had to record and whatnot, we decided.
We were greedy. We wanted more listeners. We'll put it at that. We wanted to double up on you guys.
It actually, what it came down to was, Wednesday morning there's a practice, so might as well release it Tuesday, so then at least if there's anything big that happened, there wasn't, so it didn't really matter. He was at least there, and we had him. But we did an hour with him.
We're fattening him up. We're fattening him up, and
I guess we are fattening up our weekly listens.
Don't get too spoiled.
He gave some great insight, great analysis, sat with us for an hour, kind of went up and down the roster, talked about a lot of things. So make sure you go check that out. But he was our first guest. Next week, as Paulie kind of just mentioned, Chris Nimbley is going to be on the show for week 2 of training camp, kind of heading into their first game. We're going to talk about him and his observations from Jets camp. We have a few other guys that we've talked to and have booked for the next weeks, but I'll share that guest next week. We'll just keep it a week by week thing. All right, Kyle. Now we can talk a little bit between ourselves. I know Paulie wanted to call in, but he had a time limit, so we wanted to get him on pretty early. I
always like our conversations, Ben. They're never.
Me too. They're never boring.
Angry. No.
They can be, but they're never boring. Occasionally, I get frustrated, or there's a few dick jokes.
I'm looking for the word. Damn it. Oh, I hate myself on the camera. No, arrogant. Well, yes. Not the word I'm thinking of. It's like when you compliment someone, but you mean it as like
a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a word for that. Why can't I think of that? I don't know. Anyway,
the literature take.
That's that awkward laugh you do when your boss makes a joke, and you're not really laughing, but you feel like contractually
I'm not a
obligated.
suck up, Ben. No, I'm not a suck up. I'll tell somebody if their joke sucks.
I know, you have to me many times. All right, Kyle, let's talk about a few things.
Yeah.
We'll start with Jets training camp. Obviously, they're back. The Jets are back in practice. There's stuff to talk about. We're so thankful that we actually have some content to delve into here. Unfortunately, Darnold didn't report till Monday, so we missed 3 days of the best part of training camp. But
we should just redshirt hit from the year. The guy clearly doesn't love the Jets. Clearly doesn't love football.
Professional fan.
Professional fan. Yes.
Anyways, but let's talk about Darnold. Even though I know we covered a little bit of Paulie, but Kyle, from what you've seen from our discussion with Manish, people on Twitter, I know you wouldn't necessarily be able to give your insight since you weren't there apparently.
Yeah.
But from what you've heard about Darnold at camp so far, what are your feelings about him? As we head into preseason, how do you think he's going to fare?
I feel like he should be playing all 16 games as the number 3 pick, and as a person who realizes that Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater, regardless of their talent and regardless of how much better they are, offer us nothing next year. It's simple as that. And if I am looking at the guy, we've put all of the eggs into Sam Darnold's basket. He's like a kangaroo, and we put our Joey in it. I don't know if it's the mom or dad that bounces around with the Joey, but we got the little Joey of our franchise in Sam Darnold's pouch, just hopping around, ready to go. Why not completely invest in him for this season if it's even close? If he's out there and he's just pathetic, if Christian Hackenberg has resurrected for some reason, he's wearing number 14, then don't do it. But Sam Darnold should be starting all these games, if we're being honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, just certainly from the rep percentage. And I know I keep going back to Wentz and Goff, because that's just the most recent example, and people always do that. But you could just look back on all these quarterbacks that have started week 1. Not all of them have panned out. Mark Sanchez, I guess Mark Sanchez won 4 playoff games, more than the entire Bills.
Mark Sanchez actually panned out pretty well.
For as far as a 2-year rental goes, when you look at what the Jets had to trade I mean, you basically just gave up a first-round pick for 2 straight AFC Championship appearances, which,
worth it.
With all things considered, was probably worth it because the Jets didn't give up that much to move up 12 spots. If they did that today, they would have had to give up multiple firsts. It didn't really matter in the end because they picked Kyle Wilson anyways. But what did they give up? Brett Ratcliffe, a bunch of Mangini. You know, Mangini wanted a lot of his guys. That was a big deal. He wanted a lot of his depth guys and a few other picks. But we really didn't sacrifice that much. We traded up 12 spots and got 2 AFC Championship wins. He obviously didn't pan out fully, but as far as a rental goes, pretty okay. But you look at the numbers, it's just so integral for them to just get those reps, to get that in-game experience. Yes, there is something to sitting back and learning and watching with the clipboard. There is something to seeing it done by a pro. However, that's probably 10% it's 10% important compared to him being on the field, if that makes any sense. Him being on the field is much more important to his development and his development into a top-tier quarterback than him sitting behind McCown and watching him. The other thing is McCown will still be on the roster. It's not like McCown won't be there. McCown can still show him how to prepare week in and week out to be a starting quarterback in this league.
All right. I got another poor analogy for you. You ready? Because I don't think the kangaroo one really hit. So we're going to go with this one. Okay. Sam Darnold sitting on the sideline, and like you said, has its pluses. I think there's way more minuses to it, though. I think everybody can agree on that. It's like a rodeo clown who wants to be a cowboy watching the dude ride a bull from a distance. Going, okay, cool, I need to put my hands there and hold on for dear life. But it doesn't mean crap if you don't have practice and you haven't done it. So you got to throw the kid into the fire, jump into the pan. If you want to make crispy bacon, you got to put it in the oil.
All right. Bit ridiculous, but you do have a point, and you articulated kind of what I was trying to say, what I was stumbling through saying, which was basically, yeah, I mean, you're going to learn more by doing than watching. Yes, in order to ride a bicycle, you need to know where to put your feet on the pedals and to pedal. But in order to know how to ride a bicycle, you're going to have to do it first. It's not exactly the same because a lot of that isn't just watching. I mean, obviously Sam Darnold has seen football before, but it's going through a week with a starting quarterback, an older guy, you know, seeing how he studies, you know, learning the playbook, just making sure you know it like the back of your hand. That's what it is. But my point is I think he can do that while playing with McCown. I think McCown is not selfish like other veteran quarterbacks you might see who don't want to, you know, not be starting quarterbacks. God dang it, Kyle. You want to be – yeah, Kyle's just sending me texts, just spamming me. I think he could do it while playing, if that makes any sense. McCown is there to teach Darnold. He said that would be his greatest goal of his career if Darnold is a Pro Bowl quarterback. So I think he's going to be able to teach him while playing. I think that's a big thing. If McCown wasn't doing that, I think it would be more necessary for McCown to be the starter, so then Darnold could at least witness it. Whereas if Darnold's a starter, McCown, if he was selfish, would be like, well, I'm not the starter. Why am I gonna prepare like I am? Why am I gonna show him? McCown clearly wants to be able to. We're going to do one more topic here, and then I guess we can jump into some predictions, or I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. But, Kyle, on the offset of the summer, we were talking about, you know, our the biggest weaknesses on the Jets, how they could – what were you going to say? Sorry.
I said offset.
Oh, wow. I thought you were saying also. I thought you were going to chime in there.
No.
Anyways, we talked about –
a little Migos reference for you.
Yeah. Got it there. All right.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We talked about what is going to be the downfall of the Jets in 2018, and I was talking about my biggest worries. We were talking about, obviously, edge rush, as Josh Martin is currently our starting outside linebacker. We were talking about offensive line, as, of course, they've struggled with injuries. The two guards were pretty terrible last year. I'm worried about the offensive line coach. And then the last one was cornerback depth. And as Paulie said, it's only been 5 days of practice. But so far, there have been a few guys who've shown out and to be maybe potential studs. Perry Nickerson and Derrick Jones. Kyle, how important it would be? Friend of the podcast. How important would it be for those two or any other of the young guys behind them, Jeremy Clark, Xavier Coleman, Justin Burris, if you count him still as a young guy? How important would it be for those guys to step up? Obviously, it's important, but how does it change your outlook of the 2018 season if the Jets can establish solid cornerback depth, especially considering Mo Claiborne's injury history, Buster Skrine's issues on the outside, etc.?
If we're talking strictly cornerback depth, I think obviously two guys who can come in and perform at a high level in the preseason against, lower level guys who they're supposed to perform well against is always good. But, realistically, they're not going to get a lot of snaps in the regular season. I know Bowles likes to rotate guys, but, Nickerson and Jones are going to be behind the three top guys on our roster. So it's, things happen, injuries happen, maybe they get more snaps, but it's not like they're going to be playing 75% of the game. So it's great that we have those guys. But I think the best part that would come out of it would be developing your homegrown players. Jones is a guy who we stashed away basically last year. Was somebody we took a leap of faith on, to say. I mean, you think he was active for the last 5 games. He didn't play, but he was on the roster. He took a spot, and I'm pretty sure it was the last couple of games. I don't know the exact number, but, that's a guy we took a leap of faith on. Obviously, Nickerson took a leap of faith with him, drafting him. And you look at what the Jets, the main guys that they have, we're starting to see more homegrown talent. Quincy Enunwa, obviously different GMs throughout the time, but homegrown talent. Quincy Enunwa, Robbie Anderson, Brian Winters, 3 pretty key pieces on offense. Bilal Powell, pretty solid piece on offense, and eventually Sam Darnold. But we're starting to build that on defense too. Obviously Adams and May, they're still young, but homegrown pieces. Leonard Williams. If you add guys like Nickerson and Jones to that, it's great because it's awesome to go and spend money and, go get your Tremaine Johnsons of the world. That's great because they're going to come in and immediately produce. But at the same time, there's just a sense of accomplishment when you invest in players and it pans out, because that means not only is your scouting process working, your coaching process is working, and when those two are clicking together, that's a big thing. You look at recent Super Bowl champions. The Eagles developed a lot of players on that defensive line. Obviously, the quarterbacks, now they went out and signed a bunch of playmakers for themselves, but guys like Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, Nick Foles, who was there for a while in Philadelphia. Obviously he had a little stint with Kansas City and Los Angeles for a year and a half, but was with the Eagles franchise for the majority of his career. They developed a lot of their good players, and then the Patriots consistently winning, developing new offensive linemen every year, constantly replenishing with talent guys we've never heard of, Chris Hogan, etc. And I can ramble about every Super Bowl champion over the past 10 years that have done that to the majority of their roster. And that is the direction you have to go in the NFL, because spending money is great to do when you have it, but you will not always have it. And when you don't have it, it's a problem, because then you can't win, because you're relying on everybody else in the NFL to create players for you when you have to create it for yourself. You can't buy opportunities always. You have to create opportunities and open doors for yourself, and that's through embracing your own players, keeping them around, paying them, which is something we're seeing the Oakland Raiders not doing right now, and it's going to come back to haunt them, I bet you that. So the Jets, they're stepping in the right direction with this, developing young players, specifically Nickerson and Jones right now for cornerback depth.
Yeah, and the one thing you said there is taking a leap of faith. Anytime you draft a guy, I guess you take a leap of faith. More so with Jones, because the thing to remember is that he was a converted wide receiver. He was a guy who was playing wide receiver when he first got to Ole Miss, converted to cornerback, and his, obviously based off his athleticism, his length, his ball skills, his speed, and they were hoping that would translate into corner, being a solid corner. So he basically was a redshirt. He played special teams last year a lot, played pretty well. Obviously all those things translate to special teams regardless of what position you play. And then hopefully this year was the year that he could show in the offseason that he was really grasping being a cornerback, in the NFL. And I don't mean to say anything. Wearing number 31, he looks exactly like Antonio Cromartie. All right, Kyle, let's go through some preseason predictions here. I wrote a few of them down. You're going to talk to me. Tell me how you feel about them. Tell me if you agree, disagree, and whatnot, your thoughts. All right, so my first preseason prediction that I'll give you on the show is 2 undrafted free agents will make the squad, the 53-man roster. First, Dimitri Flowers, who's a guy I know you obviously believe in.
Yeah.
I like Lawrence Thomas, and I think it is cool to have a 300-pound fullback. I think there are some benefits to that, especially.
Are we talking about undrafted free agents from this year specifically?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, you could just easily go Robbie Anderson and Dimitri Flowers there.
What? You think I'm talking really, Kyle? Robbie Anderson's been on the team for 3 years.
Well, he is an undrafted
That's
free
a real
agent.
bold prediction. Robbie Anderson going to make the roster.
He is an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, a former Okay, anyways. Dimitri Flowers, obviously more versatile than Lawrence Thomas. Used as an H-back in Oklahoma's offense last year. Was pivotal to Baker Mayfield. So I think you can definitely use him in receiving situations. He's a very good blocker. Kind of your prototypical fullback. So I'm very excited about him. He was a guy that I thought could get drafted, but purely based off his position, being listed as a fullback, even though he's kind of more of an H-back, he fell to the undrafted round, or he became an undrafted free agent. The Jets were able to pick him up.
I love that round.
Yeah, it's a great round. It actually is kind of fun. The other guy is a guy that I hadn't really heard of, and I had the benefit of adding him to my 53-man roster that you didn't, because Kyle made his 53-man roster before training camp. I made mine today.
Cheater.
Manish Mehta had talked about when I asked him, who's the surprise guy that could make the roster? And he said outside linebacker Frankie Louvu, outside linebacker, or undrafted free agent from Washington State. I'm not going to lie, I had no idea who that was. I forgot we even brought him in. But he was the only edge rusher we brought in, in the offense.
Ben, that's supposed to be your territory. I'm supposed to know all the East Coast guys. You're supposed to know all the West Coast guys.
I guess so. I guess so. He was a Washington State Cougar, so he's not that far away from me. But then I checked his stats. I looked at his senior stats: 6.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown off of one of those fumble recoveries. And then I was reading more about him in training camp that he's making some plays. The training staff likes him, and Manish Mehta thought he was going to make the roster as well. I mean, you look at the Jets' outside linebacker core, and we have a dearth of pass rushers. It's pretty barren at that position group. You have Josh Martin and Jordan Jenkins are probably the only locks to make the roster. Jordan Jenkins is going to be a starter. Josh Martin is looking like he's the starter. And at the very worst, Josh Martin's a good special teamer, but I don't know if he's going to be a great outside linebacker in the NFL. Again,
Ben, did you know he went to Columbia?
I did know that.
Okay, cool.
Is that the new Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard?
Well, it's just whenever an Ivy League guy, you got to throw that out there.
You got to mention it. Yeah, no, I agree. But
you don't brag about, oh, did you know that Dimitri Flowers went to Oklahoma? It's not really something to brag about.
I guess Columbia is a big time flex there for Josh Martin.
Shut up.
How white did I sound when I said that?
That had to be the whitest
that was
thing
like a dad joke.
You talked to me about 401ks the other day, and that was the whitest
I didn't talk
thing.
to you about 401ks yesterday.
I know.
That was look at that.
Yeah.
Lying. Fake news right there.
Fake news media.
Look, Martin, we talked about training camp darlings with Paulie. Martin was the training camp darling of last offseason. In the preseason and whatnot, he was getting after the quarterback. We're like, hey, we might have an edge rusher here. Bill Belichick clearly really liked him when he talked about him 2 years ago. So it's a chance. There's a chance that Martin could develop, but besides that, he'll stick on the roster purely for his special teams ability and is probably the starting outside linebacker outside Jenkins. But you look besides that. Okay, you have Lorenzo Malden, who had 3 sacks his rookie year, kind of showed he could be a situational pass rusher. The next year he was pretty bad, was terrible against the run, and then put on some weight, so he was not as effective against the pass. Then he got hurt, and now he's here. I do expect Malden to make it, even though, he's heading into a pretty pivotal year 4 for him. I do expect him to make it. After that, you have Dylan Donahue, who didn't play it really at all last season, drove down the wrong way at the Lincoln Tunnel.
Is he heading in the right direction, Ben?
We'll see. Honestly, we'll see. He's a pending DUI against him, so I don't know about that.
Sorry, Dylan, if you listen. Sorry.
I doubt Dylan Donahue's listening to the podcast.
Friend of the podcast, Dylan Donahue?
I don't think he is a friend of the podcast. I would
no.
That he is. There's Brandon Copeland, maybe a free agent. I don't know. But I think Frankie Louvu gives you a guy who's an undrafted free agent, playing well, got after the quarterback in college. I do like the name. Got after the quarterback in college, created turnovers. So he's the other guy. That was a long-winded answer. My apologies.
Scott reminded me to remind you.
Second undrafted free agent. Kyle, your thoughts on that bold prediction? Do you agree that 2 undrafted free agents will make the 53-man roster, and then do you agree with those 2 picks?
I definitely agree that one of them will make it, and I'm trying to think if any others off the top of my head who are undrafted free agents, because I don't think Louvu will make it. So I'm just looking for possibly another guy. I wouldn't be shocked if one of these undrafted wide receivers make it on another team. But no, for the Jets, I think only one undrafted free agent will make it, and he'll be a starter. So.
Interesting stuff there. I think that Luvu, I probably wouldn't have said if Meta hadn't brought him up yesterday.
I like that name so much. I'm rooting for this kid now, just because I like the last name Luvu.
Just because of that. That was it.
Yeah. Like there's some like names that I just like I want to root for. Lucky Whitehead, that's the best name ever.
That is a pretty good name. All right.
It's better than Benedict.
Okay. You know what, Skyle? That was
Skyle?
Scott.
What the hell is that?
You hit a nerve there. Don't go after my namesake. All right, I'm going to go Doug Middleton gets more third safety reps than Terrence Brooks during the season.
Yeah, no, because I don't think Doug Middleton makes the roster.
Really?
Yeah, I have.
For that. Well, I saw yours, and I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that up a little bit later. Kyle on his 53-man roster had the Jets carrying 5 safeties, which doesn't seem exactly correct, but who knows? I mean, Bowles obviously loves his safeties, but 5 seems like a pretty high amount, especially since you're carrying 3 quarterbacks as well. Your 5 were Adams, May, Rontez Miles, C.J. Wilcox, and Terrence.
J.J. Wilcox.
J.J. Sorry, I said C.J. He's a basketball player. Sorry. J.J. Wilcox cutting Doug Middleton. What's your argument there?
The reasoning behind it? Adams and May, obviously, starters secured on the roster. Rontez Miles, currently injured, right? Rontez?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so I don't know what his status is, because when I made this, really no injury reports except the really obvious injuries that we knew were going to affect guys were out yet. So, like, all the conditioning and stuff, or, like, guys were put on the PUP, which was a couple of guys. I knew nothing about that ahead of time. Rontez Miles happened to be one of those guys. But Miles, I think, will be on the roster. By far our best special teamer. The definition of reliability when it comes to that. He's very good in the run, for situations like that. Not great in pass coverage, which is obviously a problem. But, he's just a guy who's been around forever with the team. He knows Todd Bowles' defense really well. He's a guy who's versatile. I think he's more versatile than Doug Middleton. J.J. Wilcox, that guy is a really good safety in the NFL. He kind of got the Kenny Vaccaro treatment this year. Had the opportunity to go sign with the 49ers, obviously flipped to us. But don't know why he was on the market for so long. That is a starter-level safety who is going to be playing a backup role for us. And Terrence Brooks, another really good special teamer who, excelled when he was used in the 3-safety set last year. But I think J.J. Wilcox will get more of those reps. But I look at Doug Middleton, hasn't proven a lot to me. He's had opportunities. Unfortunately, injuries have gotten in the way for him, so I'm hoping he gets some more opportunities. But he hasn't proven a lot to me. He's kind of just been a name at camp for a couple of years.
You're not wrong. The past 2 years, I believe.
Yeah.
He's been a big name at camp, was getting interceptions in the preseason. And again this year in training camp, Jets, Manish brought him up yesterday. People are tweeting about him. He's making his presence felt. And you look at how often Bowles uses a third safety, and that seems like a growing trend in the NFL that maybe in a few years the third safety will be another starting position. He looks like he's getting a lot of reps there. You mentioned Brooks definitely excelled there, and I think the Jets will keep Brooks. But agree to disagree. I definitely think it's more likely Doug Middleton makes the roster than Rontez Miles and J.J. Wilcox. But agree to disagree. We'll do 3 more of these. Then we'll go get to the callers. Then we'll come back and do a few more of predictions and then comparing our 53-man rosters. We're not going to make the same mistake
for tonight.
We'll figure that out while we're doing.
Ooh, I got one.
We're not going to make the same mistake as we have in the past, where we've compared 53-man rosters and we've gone through it and we've just been quarterback to this. I've outlined 4 or 5 things, the differences between ours. We kind of just covered one of them that I wanted to talk about. But we'll get to 3 more predictions, then we'll get to some callers. So next one, Trenton Cannon will be the Jets' starting kick returner, punt returner both, and this is show that he could be the Jets' version of Corey Clement. And if you don't know who Corey Clement is, and I mean this year, he was the running back for the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't know. For the listeners who don't know, he was the running back for the Eagles who made an impact in the Super Bowl kind of as a pass-catching guy. Anyways, my reasoning for this is, one, Elijah McGuire is hurt for now. So it looks like the Jets are going to have to take another running back outside of Isaiah Crowell and Bilal Powell, unless Elijah's healthy. So that leaves it between pretty much just him versus Thomas Rawls. And Thomas Rawls is having a bad camp. Trenton Cannon is having a very good camp. People are amazed with his speed. We knew that already, even though he was coming from a very small school. And we drafted him. People talked about him being a kick returner, punt returner, and showing off that speed. I definitely going to see that translate to special teams, and then I think you're going to see that translate to the offense. When you have a guy who has this much burst in his step, I think Jeremy Bates, by the end of the season, will try to find ways to get him involved in the passing game. Kyle, agree or disagree?
Okay. I partially agree what you're saying. I disagree why you're saying it. I hate the Corey Clement comparison because anybody who watched Big Ten football or Wisconsin football or even scouted running backs last year knew that Corey Clement was the victim of being in a very, very, very deep running back draft class that has produced names like Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, just to name a couple, who are 3 top guys right now in the NFL when it comes to running backs. Clement, one of the best Wisconsin producers of all time, amongst the likes of Melvin Gordon over there. I had a 4th-round grade on him. The kid was a good running back coming out of college, like I said, hurt by the depth of his class that year. So I don't think Trenton Cannon even compares to him as a talent.
I wasn't comparing him as a talent. I was comparing them as a usage. How the Jets would use him. It was just a name to throw out. If you want me to just say starting kick returner, punt returner, and then situational pass catching running back, we can say that instead. I used him kind of as for visualization purposes.
Yeah, I understand because Clement caught 2 passes in the Super Bowl. I get that, but I do think Cannon will make the roster now in my initial 53, which was pre-training camp. Like I said earlier. I had Elijah McGuire making it over him. Obviously, McGuire hurt. Probably be back week 1, week 2, but I'm expecting the Jets to keep another body until he's 100% ready to go, and that will be Trenton Cannon because Thomas Rawls, who has been trash for years now, will not make it. So Trenton Cannon, I think, will be on the roster and definitely have all the opportunities in the world. He has the speed and hands to be a kick returner and punt returner, but we kind of have a guy in Lucky Whitehead and Andre Roberts who are both, career guys at that, who we could, easily put back there. So, I mean, if he comes out there and he proves that he can do it and the Jets don't want to carry Lucky Whitehead or Andre Roberts, who will be extra wide receivers, that's fine because it does make a lot more sense to carry Trenton Cannon, a young guy who you just drafted, than it does to carry Lucky Whitehead and Andre Roberts. But those are proven veterans who can do it and have proven they can do it. Trenton Cannon, bit unproven. So we'll see in the preseason. We'll see in the rest of training camp. But I agree, Trenton Cannon will make the roster as of right now because he is the only other running back really capable. Because Thomas Rawls is hot trash and has been.
All right, fair enough. All right, we're going to go next one here. We're going after your boy. It's a debate about your boy, Terrell Pryor.
Mm-hmm.
Him versus Chad Hansen. This is kind of, the debate going on for the 4th wide receiver, even though they're completely different wide receivers because Hansen is the backup slot receiver. Pryor is probably more the backup number 1 receiver, X receiver. But, so we're not going to say, well, who's the 4th, whatever. We're going to talk about who has more catches, Terrell Pryor or Chad Hansen in 2018.
Ooh. I'll probably say Chad Hansen just because of the role. I think Pryor, the majority of his production from this year is going to be towards the red zone, which obviously less opportunities to be given to him because common sense says the Jets will not be in the red zone as much as they will be the rest of the field, where a slot receiver of the likes of Chad Hansen will definitely be getting more targets and have the abilities more. Now, that's not saying Terrell Pryor won't be used anywhere else on the field because he definitely has the ability to stretch the field and get open. And as long as that ankle is healthy, he's a very versatile receiver. But, a big body like that, and seeing as we already have Robbie and Quincy ahead of him as of right now, Hansen will probably get more receptions because of the role. But I think Pryor will be more productive in terms of producing in what you look for in a wide receiver, and that's touchdowns for me.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to concede to you. I'm not going to lie, I was expecting you to say Terrell Pryor, but yeah, I was going to say I think Hansen's going to get more catches. I think he's going to be involved in this offense. But you're right. Connor Hughes was talking about it today. how Terrell Pryor is the biggest receiver he's seen for the Jets since Brandon Marshall, which is, biggest receiver he's seen in his life outside of Brandon Marshall. He's just huge, he's lengthy, and they want to use him in the red zone. So I think you're right. I think Pryor gets more touchdowns. I have him around 4, and I think Hansen's going to get more catches, maybe around 30 or whatnot. All right, I believe we have one more. Yep, we do. All right, one more. This is my bold prediction. Neil Sterling will make the roster over Jordan Leggett. Before I give you a chance to answer, I just want to say, and you can disagree or agree. So Neil Sterling's claim to fame outside of performing well so far in training camp. A lot of positive feedback about him so far in these 5 practices. He led the Jets in catches and receiving yards for Jets tight end in a single game. Okay. Even though he only played 1 game, I know the Jets got blown out. He had 5 receptions and 76 yards, which was better than any Jets tight end had that season. Granted, they targeted him more. It was Bryce Petty. I know there's a lot of qualifiers, but it at least shows that he can go up again. I mean, they were playing the Patriots starting defense. He can go up and become a consistent contributor. Jordan Leggett, 5th-round pick from last year, was injured. Over his junior and senior seasons, he had 15 touchdowns, 86 catches, and over 1,200 yards. So obviously a college producer, and we yet to really see him perform in the NFL. The Jets obviously like him. That was part of the reason they let ASJ walk. He has a great build. So it's kind of a battle because Tomlinson's pretty much guaranteed to make it due to his blocking.
Friend of the podcast, forgot to say. I was yawning.
Who?
Offensive Aaron Jenkins.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. Tomlinson's going to make it because of his blocking for the most part. Is pretty much a lock. Chris Herndon's going to make it because he's a 4th-round rookie and is, according to all reports, been the most impressive tight end in camp. And so then it comes down to Clive Walford versus Jordan Leggett and Neil Sterling. Walford's the veteran. I don't think he'll make it. I mean, they could I think the Jets are going to try to roll with one of these young guys. They could conceivably take 4 tight ends, but I think they're going to stick with 3. So it comes down to Sterling, who's had a very good camp so far, and Leggett, who is a huge college producer. Kyle, what's your take?
Okay, so I'm not going to make the same mistake. Bucky Hodges is gone. If you listen to the Manish Mehta interview, you understand that joke. So go listen to it if you don't understand it. Not going to tell you exactly what he did. But in my initial 53, I had Bucky Hodges going on the practice squad because he is eligible for it. I think that's a talent you have to keep around. I have us cutting Neil Sterling and Clive Walford and keeping Eric Tomlinson, Jordan Leggett, Chris Herndon. Your statement was that Neil Sterling will make it over Jordan Leggett, correct?
Yes.
I strongly disagree with that. I don't think the Jets are going to get rid of somebody who they obviously liked enough to spend draft capital on, which is arguably the most precious thing in the NFL. The draft picks, they're kind of like gold. You pay the price for them, and if you hit it right, it's great. If you waste one, you're going to get crucified for it. Look at Christian Hackenberg. Eric Tomlinson, Chris Herndon, I think are solidified because Tomlinson is the chip off the old block who we need around, and Herndon, obviously a draft pick this year, not going to cut him, and Leggett, who got injured last year and needs the opportunity to prove himself in the open field. So I think Neil Sterling, a veteran who has only produced literally for maybe 35 minutes in his career, is going to have to put on an amazing preseason for him to make it over Jordan Leggett. If anything, then I think he gets made over Eric Tomlinson because you don't get rid of Leggett and Herndon because you just got those guys. Tomlinson obviously offers a lot blocking, but if you have to get rid of a guy without giving up too much, it would be Eric Tomlinson.
Yeah, I can see that point. And, part of the reason with that take was, trying to be bold, but I do believe that Neil Sterling, I think, is going to make this roster. I agree with you that I think they're going to struggle dropping Leggett. I will say this, both are eligible for the practice squad. So if they cut one, I don't think it means their career as a Jet is over. Now, I wonder if this factors into the Jets' decision-making. And if it's close, I agree with you. I think they'll go Leggett. And here's why. I think it's easier to stash Sterling on the practice squad than it is Leggett. Because Leggett would generate some buzz, former 5th-round pick, didn't play at all his rookie year, had a lot of college production as Deshaun Watson starting tight end. I think it's conceivable that he could get signed to another 53. Sterling has only really played in one game. Not many people know his name. So I think if it's close, I think you're right. They're going to go Leggett. Part of me believes, though, that Neil Stern is going to have a really strong camp, and it's going to make it hard for them to move on. All right, let's get to some callers. We'll come back and do some more topics. We have plenty of stuff to talk about, plenty of content. We're going to go ahead and go to Tyler, who's been on the line for a bit. Tyler, we understand it's your birthday. Happy birthday, man.
Yo, thank you. What's up, Ben? What's up, Sam Darnold?
Oh, hell yeah.
Unfortunately, Sam Darnold is not on the podcast unless I guess
No.
No.
I'm Sam Darnold. Joe Blewett said I was the Terrell Pryor of podcasting after I backed him down for the busted screen. Tyler, my number one fan, came in and said I was the Sam Darnold of podcasting, which I will take because I'm known for the faulty turnovers, but at the same time, I am the golden child. I am the only hope here. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, not to toot my own horn or anything. But, Tyler, how old are you turning?
22.
All right. So you were legal last year.
Yeah, I was legal last year.
All right. What are you gonna do to celebrate?
Let's talk Tyler. Jeez.
I'm gonna go to dinner.
Okay.
Have some Japanese food.
Nice. You gonna drink a lot?
Okay. All right. Let's move on. What is this? All right.
Move on, please.
Tyler, well, for your birthday, I guess you could say it was an early birthday gift. The Jets got you Sam Darnold. He's having in his 2 practices, having a pretty good camp so far. What are your expectations of him in 2018? Do you think that they'll carry him on? Do you think he'll start from week 1, or do you think it'll be one of those things where McCown starts from the get-go?
Yo, what am I gonna say? For Sam Darnold's holdout, I was like, okay, day 1, all right, no problem. Day 2, I was like, this is getting ridiculous. What should I do? And around like day 3 or day 4, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna DM out to see what's going on. So there you go, Sam Darnold's.
You're sliding in those DMs, Tyler?
Yeah, I was sliding into those DMs.
Whose DMs did you slide into?
Sam Darnold.
So are you
on
the
Twitter?
reason Sam Darnold on Instagram?
No.
The reason?
It was right on Instagram.
Okay, good. Because he doesn't have Twitter.
He doesn't have Twitter.
Yeah. So you're saying you're the reason Sam Darnold signed his contract?
Not saying he's not.
We're not saying he's not.
I'm not saying
he's not the reason.
But...
All right, Tyler. Quick hitting questions here. I want you to give me one surprise guy who nobody's really talking about that you think will make the team.
Surprise cut?
No, a surprise guy. That's the next question.
Surprise guy. That'll make the team?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the undrafted wide receivers like Trey McBride.
I think Trey McBride's been around.
No, whoa, what did you say, Kyle?
Hasn't Trey McBride been in the NFL for like 3 or 4 years?
He's been in here for 3 years, but he's still kind of a surprise guy to make the team. Tyler, I actually agree with you there. I think you're right on this. You know, looking at my 53, I had the Jets keeping 6 wide receivers, 5 of whom we've already talked about. Curse Enunwa, Anderson.
No, don't curse Enunwa.
Okay, Jermaine Curse. Okay, whatever. I'm not going back for that. Obviously, everybody knew what I meant. Pryor and Hansen. So that's your 5. And then you're kind of looking at the 6th guy. Stewart is suspended for the first 2 games of the year, so I think the Jets are going to take a 6th guy. And out of the other guys, Trey McBride is a player that I think the Jets could keep. You know, he's had a solid camp so far. Kyle mentioned he's been in the league for a bit. He's had some success with the Bears and then the Titans or whatnot. So I think he'll stick kind of as a speedster. He can also return kicks and punts, which is nice. And then I think when Stewart comes back after 2 weeks, then I think that you could consider cutting him. All right, Tyler, last question for you. A surprise cut, a guy on the Jets who, people are assuming he's going to make the roster that you think Todd Bowles and Mike Cagnon could cut from the team.
Thinking this one through.
Yeah, I'm lost.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you have an answer?
Surprise cut?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, who's a surprise cut?
It's not really.
Really? Nobody can think of.
I can't really think of anybody surprising.
All right. Well, Jordan Leggett, I guess, was mine.
Yeah.
I don't think that's realistic, though.
And you don't think that's realistic?
No.
I'll go. I can give you a few. Kyle, and Tyler, you can both give me your thoughts. Oli Fatukasi, the Jets draft pick. I could see him potentially getting cut and put on the practice squad in favor of Xavier Cooper.
I disagree.
All right. Agree to disagree. I have the Jets only carrying 9 offensive linemen, which means they cut a guard. And the guard I had them cutting, I believe, was Dakota Dozier, partly because Ben Braden's having a nice camp, so I think he'll be a guard. And then Travis Swanson can play both guard and center, so you could consider a guy like Dozier, who's been with the team for a while, a surprise cut. Darryl Roberts.
Who played well last year.
I have the Jets keeping Darryl Roberts, but he could conceivably be a surprise cut. None of these are clicking? No? Nothing?
I strongly disagree with all of them.
Wow.
I disagree.
All right, Tyler. Before we let you go, I want one bold prediction, one preseason prediction for you, man.
Sam Darnold gets majority of the reps.
All right, really bold there. Tyler, where can our listeners follow you, man?
All right. Oh, what?
Where can our listeners follow you on Twitter, man?
You can follow me at TJTank896. I usually talk. I don't really talk on Twitter that much, but I do every once in a while.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, Tyler, it was nice having you on, man. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Go celebrate your 22nd. Don't have too much fun now.
Go get smashed.
All right. Okay. All right. See you guys.
All right.
All right, and that was Tyler. We're going to go next to the phone. Well, I'll pause for a second before we get our next caller.
Deep breath.
What?
I actually do not agree with any of those cuts that you're. I don't think any of them.
I was throwing out some surprising ones. The one I do pick is Dakota Dozier. I think that you look at. Really, you don't. Well,
no,
I was going through my
last
roster.
year.
I think he did well at times. I think it's a fight between him and Ben Braden because I think the Jets are only going to keep 9 offensive linemen. However, they could keep 10. And then to play devil's advocate for my own point, you could say, look at the injury history of the 2 Jets guards. Potentially they could keep a guard. But my thing was, look, Swanson can play both center and guard. I'd rather cut one of the offensive linemen, keeping in mind that you can always sign a guy, off your practice squad or whatever, and keep an extra linebacker or whatnot. I had the Jets keeping, I believe, 9 total linebackers. So 5 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers, and then 9.
I have 7 linebackers.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's why I have, I added on to some other positions that I think were more necessary. But, yeah, I could see Dozier making the team. Just right now.
So here's my reasoning for 10 offensive linemen. So obviously the 5 guys, Beachum, Carpenter, Long, Winter, Shell, I think they're going to stick around. They're pretty much cemented. And then behind them, it's basically depth at every position with a couple swing guys. Qualve, he can play guard and tackle for us basically whenever. He's a homegrown guy. He's not great by any means necessary, but he's a guy who can come in and fill in where you really need him to, except center. Dakota Dozier can play both guard positions. Versatile guy, played well last year. Ben Ajalana can play both tackles. Has started before for us. Again, like Qualve, not great, but a good depth player. Antonio Garcia, a guy who can play left tackle, right tackle, and guard. A guy I really like coming out of college. Obviously, health issues got in the way. I love that we picked him up. I think he sticks around. And then Travis Swanson, obviously we signed him, gave him a decent amount of money. Will be primarily the backup center and both play left guard and right guard. So all those guys are swing players, and I think the biggest part about offensive line that messes up, coaches and stuff is they will sacrifice 2 positions to make one a little better. So, and when I say that, I mean, say their right guard goes down. Then they kick their right tackle in, and then they put up a backup when they can just have a swing guy in the backup and not lose your right tackle while you're at it. And I think that's what the Jets should do with the offensive line depth because we have a lot of those guys. Qualve, Dozier, Ajalana, Garcia, Swanson. All of them can play multiple positions. That's very valuable. But at the same time, I don't want to get stuck in a position where, say, we only keep Swanson, Quale, and Ajalana, and now, okay, one guy goes down, and then you have almost no depth. So I think you have to keep an abundance of guys here at the offensive line position because injuries happen all the time, obviously, what we saw with Winters and Carpenter last year, primarily Winters, with injuries. So it's just something you have to be prepared for and have good depth, have starter-level depth. Travis Swanson could be a starter for a couple teams in the NFL. He's not great. He's probably right there on the Wesley Johnson level, but as a backup, that's okay. You can afford to have that. So I like the depth at offensive line.
All right, fair enough. Let's go back to the phone lines. We have Todd on the line. Todd, how's it going, man?
How's it going, guys?
Oh, well, thank you for joining us, man. We're back to Jets training camp, so we're doing well. Todd, we talked a lot about the quarterback so far, so we'll touch on it briefly, just because this is kind of the big driving topic. Yesterday on our podcast with Manish Mehta, he talked about how he fully expects Sam Darnold to be the starter. Todd, how do you feel about that? Are you in the contingent of Jets fans that believe that he should sit and learn behind McCown for at least a few weeks, maybe even longer? Or do you agree with Manish that, it's the best thing for the Jets is to throw him out there and let him get those reps?
I mean, as long as he's ready, obviously. You don't want to just throw him out there and, have him look like Hackenberg in the preseason. But, obviously obviously everything looks like, that he looks great so far. So, I mean, if he plays well in the preseason and everything, proves himself, of course, let him play. I mean, if he's not ready and has to sit 4 games, so be it. I don't think, you just send him out there just to send him out there, but as long as he's fine, let him go.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that one. All right, well, let's move on from the quarterbacks. We've talked enough about it. We'll move to Todd Bowles' defense. And Andy Benoit, who writes for Bleacher Report or Monday Morning Quarterback or whatever, he was tweeting out a lot of positive things about the Jets today. I'm not really sure what that was about. Maybe I think he does one for every team each day at training camp or something like that. That was just kind of what I read into it. But I started reading his article, and he talked about how this is really the first year. You could maybe count last year, but maybe the first year where Todd Bowles has the personnel to run his defense. You look at, they have 2 big, strong press corners. They have 3 capable safeties. They have pressure that generates from the inside, and most importantly, they have a lot of speed. I mean, you look at the defense. He was talking about. I mean, Darren Lee is probably the fastest linebacker in the league. Rivals probably Deion Jones.
No.
Jamal Adams is
no, not even close.
Really, Kyle,
No.
You don't agree?
No, I think Deion Jones is up there. If we're talking pure speed, well, linebacker speed and pure speed is. Darren Lee could probably beat a lot of guys in the race. But I'll tell you right now, he cannot run side to side like a lot of these linebackers because he doesn't have the footwork for it. Friend of the podcast. I wouldn't
say it's the footwork, and I would attribute it to more what Todd Bowles was talking about, how the game was moving too fast for him, so he didn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't
and
decisive
anticipation.
enough.
That's huge for a linebacker, being able to anticipate what the play is and know where to go, know where to be. And I mean, he just hasn't been there yet. But they're expecting him to take on more of a leadership role, so maybe that's something he's worked on a lot.
Exactly, and Bowles was talking about how he thinks the game has really slowed down for him in year 3, which would be huge. If the game slows down for Darren Lee, Kyle, I mean, you talked about his pure speed. He is probably the fastest linebacker in the NFL. So if the game can slow down for him and he can make more decisive decisions,
I'm going to look it up right now.
He's definitely there. All right, good, go for it, Kyle.
Yeah.
And then you look at even in the secondary with the guy they brought in, Nickerson, the 6th-round draft pick who ran a 4.32 40-yard dash. Derrick Jones, who's been playing well in camp, is very fast, converted wide receiver. So the other aspect they brought in was a lot of speed. So he talked about all these things are kind of built for a Todd Bowles defense. Edge rusher, not really as important. Todd Bowles generates, the rush through inside pressure, hybrid blitzes, using unconventional methods of getting outside pressure, maybe using guys in the secondary or whatnot. So, Todd, after that long ramble, my question to you is how much do you think this is going to impact the Jets' production on the field? I'm not going to lie. All right.
I mean,
I don't know what that noise.
I mean, their defense is definitely better than it was last year. Obviously, you got young guys, hopefully, playing better in year 2 than year 1, Jamal and Marcus May. But I don't think you can discount not having an edge. I think that's a little short-sighted. Just I understand Bowles' defense and everything, but like to compare it kind of to like Rex's defenses, back in the day, even he kind of had similar defenses with the Jets, but before that, when he was with the Ravens, I mean, I always felt like Rex was kind of like forgetting about the fact that, he had like Terrell Suggs there, and like that was a huge part of the Ravens defense, and then, came over to the Jets and just like completely ignored the edge position after getting, after they got burnt with Golston. So just to kind of bring it back, though, I feel like even if you do like getting pressure up the middle, to have a guy on the outside who can just dip his shoulder and get around the edge and knock the crap out of the quarterback, there just aren't that many guys who could do that. And having a guy who at least can come in situationally and do it, like kind of like how Malden was in his rookie year, but like better than that. But just that kind of type of player.
Friend of the podcast.
They don't have that. They don't have that right now, and they still need it. And I think their defense can be good. Maybe like sort of close to what they were in 2015. But they're still probably going to be an average defense until they get a player like that, or a couple players like that.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with you in the fact that, having an edge rusher is certainly a luxury, especially if the Jets can lure one of the top-tier free agent edge rushers in the class of 2019. You're looking at DeMarcus Lawrence, Ezekiel Anza, potentially Khalil Mack, I guess, if through trades or whatnot, Dante Fowler. So there's Vic Beasley. There's definitely room to add an outside linebacker. And yeah, I'm not saying that wouldn't help Todd Bowles' defense. No, not at all. I mean, he's still a player on the defense. So whether you're trotting, the difference is going to be felt if you're trotting Josh Martin out there or Khalil Mack, no matter if Bowles blitzes his outside linebackers as much or whatnot. My point was basically that they have more of the personnel than in years past. You look at his first year, and especially talking about the speed aspect, you've moved on from, we talked about all those fast guys that they've added to the defense this year. You're talking about in 2015 he had Marcus Gilchrist and David Harris and Darrelle Revis. No discredit to those guys, but a lot slower. And then you look at his corners. He didn't necessarily have two big, strong press man corners. Claiborne
It's definitely resource allocation, because, I mean, like in 2015, you had like much older Revis and Cromartie there at that point, and then also Gilchrist, who I think we forget Gilchrist was actually good in 2015. So I mean, he wasn't what we're hoping like Marcus May is or whatever, but he was still a pretty good player. He just fell off a cliff in 2016, just like the rest of the team. But so I mean, they had a really good secondary, until Revis kind of just like stopped playing halfway through the year. And they had like good linebackers but slow. So I think it was just like different style players. And yeah, maybe you're right, maybe not 100% what Bowles wants to do, but I think they had a lot of the style players that Bowles would want, like in the secondary. It was just more like the front seven. They didn't have his style players, especially when you're talking about the speed on the linebackers. Because I mean, obviously at that point you still had like Mo Wilkerson playing like at his top level, and then Sheldon and Leonard, was it, or was that the year before Leonard? I can't. That was his rookie year, right?
Leonard. We had Sheldon, Mo, and we also had Snap too.
Right. So clearly the defensive line, that was like the style of defensive line that he wants. So actually, really, it was only the linebackers and the speed of the linebackers that really doesn't fit, I think, Bowles' style. But otherwise, I think it did kind of fit his style. It just, obviously that's a big part of the defense, so it's not like you can discount that. But I think now their corners are maybe, they have Trumaine Johnson and whatever happens with Mo Claiborne. And then just like faster, less established linebacker core, essentially.
Okay, so I looked it up.
All right, go ahead, Kyle.
For linebackers, he's in a 96 percentile for 40-yard dash. So if we're talking pure speed, 4% of linebackers are faster.
Okay, Kyle, but again, that proves my point. He's a 96 percentile. We can go back and forth on if he's the fastest linebacker. The point is that he is at least one of the fastest linebackers in the league, okay? Do you accept that? Sure. Yeah, no, and as far as Todd, as far as what you said, I agree. I think that, I think they're you hit the nail on the head, especially in the defensive line. I mean, you look at the talent they had. But you have to think about it. That was Todd Bowles' most successful season is when he was generating that pressure through the inside. I think that he had some of the personnel, but Antonio Cromartie was not the same Antonio Cromartie. Darrelle Revis was solid for the majority of the season, fell off right around the Houston game, but I don't think you can really compare. I mean, even in the rookie seasons, Adams and May were better than Gilchrist and Pryor ever were as a duo. But I agree with you that I think that the edge rusher that they're going to add in 2019 is going to take the defense to the next step. But I will say, the addition of Tremaine Johnson, I think the ripple effect it causes, the another year for Adams and May, et cetera, Lee, reportedly having the game slow down from whatnot. I think it's going to take the Jets at least to right around 10 as far as defensive rankings go, which is a big improvement based off of last year. All right, another thing I wanted to touch on with you, just two more things. And this is a debate Kyle and I had a little bit earlier, was the usage of Quincy Enunwa. Where do you think Enunwa should lines up best in this Jets offense? I think a lot of people after 2016 talked about him being as a baby Brandon Marshall, a number one wide receiver, a possession receiver. But then people also, after a year away from Quincy, have talked a little bit more of him as a guy going over the middle, as a slot receiver. Josh McCown compared him to Anquan Bolden, which was high praise this week. And then in comparison to Jermaine Kearse. So how do you think the Jets should best utilize their wide receivers, and specifically Quincy Enunwa? Do you think they should go with, Robbie as the X receiver, the outside guy, Kearse as the other outside guy, and then Enunwa in the slot? Or do you think they should keep Kearse in the slot, put Enunwa on the outside, et cetera?
Well, you definitely can mix and match a little bit, but, you definitely have to keep in mind Robbie, especially with his frame, probably not the guy you want going over the middle a lot. Every once in a while, fine. But ideally, you'd most likely like him on the outside more often than not. Kearse is probably more of an inside guy. But if you're keeping Pryor is really more of an outside guy also. So that's where it gets a little tricky, too, if, they're keeping Pryor. Not that it's like you have to keep Pryor over Hansen or whatever, but if he's going to be the fourth or third receiver or whatever, Pryor, then that's where the question becomes, where does Quincy, fit into that? Do they see him as more of an outside guy? Do they see him as more of an inside guy? Just definitely keep in mind that since that 2016 year, there's been two offensive coordinators, so. That was Chan Gailey's second year, so it'll be interesting to see where Bates, sees him fit in the offense compared to where Morton was gonna see him fit in the offense compared to where Chan Gailey, had him. Because 2015 they had him almost like an H-back, and then in 2016 out of necessity because of injuries they had him playing outside. So obviously it's a different offense too, so it'll be interesting to see where they have him. I could see him doing almost like a 50-50 split though, because he's clearly equipped to do both when he's at his full health.
Okay, talking about changes in offenses, I think this is something that's gone a little under the radar. Rick Dennison's integration into the system. We can't sit here and say exactly what we know what Jeremy Bates is going to be doing this year with his offense. We know it's going to be some form of the West Coast. And Rick Dennison, coming from his time in Buffalo, not highly, let's just say, viewed by the fans and by a lot of NFL people. Kind of known, for just shifting the ball, moving forward. Not necessarily great fits for guys like James Carpenter. What are your views on how Rick Dennison's going to shape the offensive line? And, what the production is going to be like and how guys are going to fit in?
Yeah, my hope is that they are smart enough to see certain players who aren't really a fit for the zone scheme, and maybe they'll do a little bit of both at the very least this year until they can get guys who are a better fit for zone blocking. Because, when you look at guys like Carpenter, for example, who was absolutely terrible in Seattle when he was in his own blocking scheme, and then came over when he came over to the Jets, it was in a man blocking scheme, and it seemed to fit his play style much better. I guess, it could have been other things, but, I mean, seems to be a pretty obvious correlation there. So if they go back to zone blocking scheme, the fear would be that Carpenter would be, a pretty bad player again. Last year seemed to be maybe more injuries, but, this year, even if he's healthy and he's playing in zone blocking, he just might not be a very good player anymore. And that's not good, considering he was like our best lineman a couple of years ago, and they haven't really improved a lot of the other spots, maybe other than center.
Yeah, I think it's a fair concern, and hopefully, I don't think the tackles will be too affected much by the system change, because I think tackles are usually more versatile in their system, and just.
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that, but definitely the guards, both guards actually.
Yeah, with Brian Winters, who, hoping he's 100% coming off the torn pec, going to be using his arms just a little bit more now, pushing, up on the line, obviously being more aggressive than passive that has been in the past. It could be a problem, and we don't have fantastic running backs, so it's not like, Arizona Cardinals, they have a okay line. David Johnson is a great running back who makes them look a lot better than they are. The Jets have an okay line with some hope to it, and we have Bilal Powell, Isaiah Crowell, and a mix of Elijah McGuire and Trenton Cannon for this season, who are going to make the line look like what they are. Those guys need block every once in a while.
One thing I will say is in 2015, our line wasn't really that much better than it was last year or the year before or whatever. But Chan Gailey did a really good job of, kind of speaking to Ryan Fitzpatrick's strength as little or few as there were.
Yeah.
But one thing that, he did really well, Fitzpatrick, is get rid of the ball very quickly. And obviously that's like a staple of the West Coast offense, which is where Bates comes from. And so, even if maybe some of the run schemes or like blocking schemes run-wise don't necessarily fit with some of the players, definitely passing-wise, West Coast offense would fit and, help minimize some of the weaknesses of the line essentially. And so that and then if they could, so instead of maybe doing a run to set up the play action, it could be more of like a pass to set up the run, essentially, type of scheme, which, a lot of teams do these days because obviously passing is a lot more overpowered. So that could be a way to open up some lanes for running backs as well.
And you talked a little bit about Chan Gailey and, working with Ryan Fitzpatrick's strengths and stuff, and you made a good point. The offensive line was not a lot better than it was, these past couple years. I think the biggest difference you'll see in the offensive line, because it's primarily stayed the same, is Nick Mangold, who, as a veteran center, a Hall of Fame level center, just one of the smartest guys on the field when it comes to protections and stuff. You don't get that with an individual like Wesley Johnson. And Nick Mangold was no longer in his prime. He was probably 20th center in the NFL, something around there. Not great. He's just an average guy, but his brain was still tops in the NFL, probably still is. He'd probably coach if he wanted to. That's a huge advantage. And obviously, like I said, end of his career, so his body started to give out, injuries started to succumb to him a little bit more. That's a huge difference, and I think that was a huge difference between the 2015 season, where we saw Chris Ivory, a average running back who got paid like an elite running back, turn into a 1,000-yard rusher. And that's, that was a big push for the Jets' 2015 run. And then, obviously, the drop-off. We lost Ivory. We lost Mangold. The offensive line, changed with scheme, a different offensive coordinator. A lot of things have changed for them, even though they have very similar players. Obviously, Winters, Carpenter, guys that are still there who have been the cores of this team. Shell was there for the past 2 years now. These are guys who have been here. So I think the biggest part were veteran leadership, and then, obviously, the scheme changes that let them down. But you're right. Not a lot of changes when it comes to players. But, Todd, thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, of course. It was a pleasure talking.
Yeah, right. And Todd, do you have any social media, can you give out your Twitter so our listeners can give you a follow?
Yeah, sure. It's just Todd, TODD _Miller 03. Or that sign first, obviously, with Twitter. But yeah.
All right, sweet. Well, we'll tweet it out. Make sure listeners go and follow you. Todd, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for being on, Todd.
All right, that was Todd. A nice little offensive line discussion there to close it out with Fahey. We have one more caller on the line.
Hey, I got a joke.
Fire ahead. Fire away.
I love talking filling holes on the Jet tape.
Nice. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Last caller of the night.
And of course,
Scott Mason, the inaugural third host of the Jet Take, closes up the show, the Mariano Rivera of Turn on the Jets. Scott Mason, welcome to the podcast.
Wait.
How's it going?
The Mariano Rivera. We're handing out gold jackets now?
Ben,
there you go.
I got to tell you, man, Fahey never disappoints with those incredibly terrible jokes that he thinks are funny, but I don't know, even an 8-year-old that would think it's funny. So, hey, listen, Fahey, as long as you laugh, that's all that really matters.
Would not understand that joke.
Well, listen, what do I expect from you? You didn't even know what The Wire was when we talked earlier.
No, I know what The Wire is.
Okay. No, I'm only a year older than you, Kyle, and I've seen every episode of The Wire. What do you do? It's one of the best shows of all time. What?
You binge watched it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't watch it like when you were growing up. No, I don't binge watch it. I've never watched Game of Thrones either. I mean, I'm just not into big TV or anything.
I watched The Wire years after it went off the air. What's your point?
It was never really a thing, though, for me. Like, I'm not into that sort of stuff.
You're not into watching television? All right.
I don't watch a lot of television. I don't.
All right.
Fair enough.
I watch Jets games and Marvel movies. That's about it.
Hey, whatever floats your boat, Fahey.
Thank you.
All right, Kyle. I made my 53-man roster today. Kyle made his last week. Scott, we're not going to bore you and go through our 53-man roster. Instead, we're going to discuss some of the differences that I noticed between Kyle's and I's. I left out a few things just because I had the benefit of having a few training camp practices to watch who's playing well and whatnot. But here are the things that I think stand out. And so Kyle will go down the line and talk about a few of them. So right off the bat, you have the Jets keeping Teddy Bridgewater on your 53-man roster. So are you saying that you don't think the Jets are going to be able to trade him before the season starts?
I'm guessing you didn't read it because I gave an explanation. I said I think he's going to get traded before the trade deadline because I don't foresee a major quarterback going down in preseason. At least I'm hoping not, because I hate to see guys, go down like that in the preseason. But I think it's much more likely that a team who considers himself in playoff contention has a quarterback go down and they trade for him more in the regular season. So I think he'll get traded before Week 8. So, yes, he will be on the roster for Week 1, in my opinion.
All right, Scott, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Jets are going to be able to pull off the trade for Teddy Bridgewater before the season starts, or do you think it's going to be one of those things that they're going to do mid-season?
It's kind of tricky. I feel like the problem is if you're going to trade Teddy Bridgewater, it has to be a situation where you see him on the field before. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to trade him during the season, because look, if he plays a little bit in the preseason and somebody goes down and you make that deal, you could justify it if you're a team. But if Teddy Bridgewater only has a couple of preseason games under his belt and isn't starting because we would presume either Darnold or McCown does, and he's sitting there rotting away on the bench, and now it's Week 8, and he still technically hasn't played in a regular season game other than handing the ball off a couple of times in garbage time last year in over 2 years, in fact, close to 3. I'm not really sure what his value is at that point. Some people have said that what you could do if Darnold doesn't earn the job is you go to Bridgewater and let Bridgewater play and then hope he plays well and then deal him. I just don't know. I think that's a little risky. I think if Bridgewater plays well in the preseason, something's going to happen somewhere. Even if it's not a starting quarterback, some backup will go down and they'll need depth. So somebody will try to trade for him. I think if he plays well, he gets dealt. If he doesn't, he might get cut. I have a hard time thinking that he's going to end up on the roster when opening day happens, just because I just don't see the value in it for the Jets. But it's not impossible. They do like him, and I mean, if you've been listening to my series with Albert Breer on the road to Sam Darnold, he even talked about how McCagnon liked Bridgewater even when he was back in Houston, and they needed to draft a quarterback back then. And he and his wife, actually, believe it or not, his wife was very impressed with Teddy Bridgewater. So it's not impossible he makes the roster, but I say that it's more likely that he gets traded, or if he plays poorly, he gets cut.
Yeah, no, I heard that part. I thought that was really interesting. Just to go back with, McCagnon was infatuated kind of with Teddy Bridgewater a few years ago when he was the director of college scouting in Houston, and then he obviously probably didn't think he had a chance to ever get him when he came to the Jets, because he was an up and coming young quarterback for the Vikings. Went to a Pro Bowl, but things fell the way they did, and he had a chance to sign him. And so to guarantee, even if he didn't get his guy, that he would have a guy he liked that he could build around, if, let's say, he wasn't able to pull off that trade. All right, moving forward, Kyle, the next piece that I thought was interesting is you had the Jets cutting Trenton Cannon and keeping Lucky Whitehead. So that implies that you believe Lucky Whitehead will be the starting returner over Trenton Cannon. Kyle, your thoughts on that?
This was before the Elijah McGuire injury, like I stated earlier in the episode. So I do have Trenton Cannon making the roster now because, injuries happen. But I had Trenton Cannon on the practice squad. It wasn't a complete cut. I think that's a guy we'll keep around who won't get picked up, unless he does amazing in the preseason. And yes, I think Lucky Whitehead will be the punt returner / kick returner, because I think the only three guys in legitimate contention there are Lucky Whitehead, Andre Roberts, and Trenton Cannon. It does make a lot more sense to keep Trenton Cannon now with the Elijah McGuire thing, but since I made this when Elijah McGuire was healthy, for that list I had, Lucky Whitehead sticking around. I might change that, though, because it does make a lot more sense to, keep a third running back who you can use as a kick returner, punt returner, and, keep another receiver instead of keeping Lucky Whitehead, who really doesn't offer much as a receiver.
Well, so I don't know why you're using McGuire as a scapegoat. I mean, his recovery is 3 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks from when he had the surgery was Monday Night Football. I know he's going to need conditioning, but do you really think? And personally, I think he's going to be on the 53. He might be inactive for weeks 1 or 2, but I don't think he's going to be put on the PUP list to free up a roster spot. I think he's going to be there. I think he might be inactive, but he's going to be on the roster. Well, then
Trent Cannon won't be on the roster.
So you believe that the Jets are only going to carry 3 running backs and Dimitri Flowers?
Yeah.
All right. Scott, your take on, one, the running back position, I guess, and then on top of that, the kick returning spot.
Yeah, I agree with both of you in some respects. I actually think he's right. The odds of Cannon being on the 53-man roster went up a lot to me when McGuire got hurt, especially when we heard the whispers that they were looking at Alfred Morris and Orleans Darkwa, and instead they picked up George Atkinson, who just finished recording a podcast with Darryl Slater from NJ Advanced Media, recapping earlier today's practice. And Atkinson hasn't really done much at all, so it seems like he's a camp body. I have a feeling that Cannon might emerge as the guy to be the replacement for McGuire for the time being, and might even have a chance at the kick return game. I think Roberts has got to be the favorite just because of his experience in the return game. But anything's possible. They're even giving a look to Trey McBride now, Darryl Slater was telling me, as a potential return man. So I think they're really looking at any possible combination because, let's be honest, guys, the return game has been pretty bad the last couple of years. And last year especially, watching JoJo Natson was just painful to do. As far as running backs, though, I think it's definitely possible that Cannon ends up as the guy that replaces McGuire as the number 3 running back, especially since, by the way, Thomas Rawls has been really bad. He's been dropping passes, and he fumbled yesterday. So it's just been a handful of practices, but Rawls has really got to get his stuff together if he's going to make this roster. I think Cannon's speed and youth makes him likely to stick. I think you're right, Ben. He may not necessarily be active every week. Obviously, we all know that the two guys that are going to get the far majority of the carries are Powell and Crowell. But until we see McGuire come back, I think that Cannon is a very strong candidate for the 53. Before that, I would have said maybe they would have put him on the practice squad, but I think there's a strong chance he makes the 53 now.
Yeah, and you mentioned Trey McBride and his ability to return kicks. Yeah, I talked about him, especially with our Darius Stewart being suspended for the first 2 games, meaning he won't count against the Jets 53. I think the Jets are going to keep 6 wide receivers, and in place of Stewart, I think they'll keep McBride. If McBride shows kind of anything in those 2 weeks, I think they'll hang on to McBride and potentially cut Stewart or cut another position to make room for him. But yeah, I think McBride's going to make the 53 just at least on his at least for 2 weeks. All right, so moving forward, a few battles here. You know, we obviously know the primary training camp battles, Sam Darnold versus Teddy Bridgewater versus Josh McCown, even the battle at fullback between Dimitri Flowers and Lawrence Thomas, and even the battle at cornerback depth. But here, you know, with the slot corner, excuse me. But here are a few under-the-radar battles, kind of for depth positions for the most part, not really starters. None of these are actually starting positions. Guys who are fighting for their jobs, basically. So we're going to start at the outside linebacker one. Now, 2 of these guys, in my estimated opinion, are going to make the roster, and I want to get first Kyle, and then I guess we'll go to Scott's opinion on it. So we have Brandon Copeland, the outside linebacker position. Brandon Copeland, Dylan Donahue, Frankie Luvu, and Lorenzo Malden. I'm saying 2 of those guys are making it, and 2 of those guys are not. Kyle, out of those 2 guys, who makes it who doesn't? Also, Scott.
What are you doing?
Say that again?
Scott was power.
What are you doing?
Sprinting. Sorry.
Who is it? What?
Scott,
what are you talking?
Your mic was a lot of noise.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, sorry about that, boys. But Kyle, go ahead.
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I was a little distracted.
I'll repeat it. Brandon Copeland, Dylan Donahue, Frankie Luvu, Lorenzo Malden. 2 of those guys make it. 2 of those guys don't. Who makes it?
Yeah. Dylan Donahue and Lorenzo Malden will make it, so Frankie Luvu and Brandon Copeland will not. Though I do think Copeland, who was a solid contributor in Detroit, is more of a special teams guy. But, he has a chance. But I think Malden, somebody obviously the Jets like, and Dylan Donahue, obviously somebody at least Mike McCagnon likes on paper. So.
All right, Scott, your take?
Yeah, I agree with Sehi. I think that it's going to be Malden and Donahue. Donahue's a guy they're clearly intrigued with. I know that Kevin Green really likes him. And Malden, at the beginning of...
Yes, he is.
Say that again?
Kyle. Kevin Green is still a coach. Scott, continue.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what he was talking about. But, yeah, so I think Donahue is going to make it. I think Malden, he's a guy that is very much on the bubble. Going into camp, I would have said probably not, but they seem to be slowly working him out of the doghouse, and he's gotten a look with the starters. Not that he's going to be a starter. Got a look with the second team today. He's actually had a few pretty good plays, so I think if he keeps it up, he'll make it. So I think those are the 2 guys. Plus, also, here's the other advantage. Both of those guys were drafted by the Jets. So that's always an extra thing, and McCagnon specifically is the one who drafted them. So any kind of, hemming and hawing, and I would expect them to lean on the guys that they picked themselves. So I agree with Fahey. I think it'll be Malden and Donahue.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say Malden and Luvu. And my only reason for that, one, Donahue is facing a DUI, and I agree. I think that Kevin Green is certainly infatuated with Dylan Donahue. Maybe we're just saying that because they're both, crazy guys with long hair. But I think Malden sticks because at least he showed a minor ability to get after the passer, at least in this group. I'm kind of already factoring David Bass making the roster in that little question. But out of that group, if 2 of them are sticking, I'll go Malden and Luvu. I would probably even go, I won't get too bold since I haven't seen him in practice yet. We'll wait for the preseason. But, from what Manish Mehta was saying yesterday, it sounds like Luvu might be in front of all those guys to make it. Undrafted free agent out of Washington State, clearly impressed, and could potentially make this team. All right, a few more here. Jeremy Clark versus Darryl Roberts for the last cornerback spot. Kyle, who wins it. If this assumes that the Jets take Game 6. All right, Scott. Scott, we're going to have to put you on mute, man.
Scott, yeah.
Scott, we're going to have to put you on mute. All right, Scott's going to go on mute. I'll unmute him when it's his turn to talk. Sorry about that. Kyle, so assuming the Jets take 6 corners, I know you didn't necessarily have them doing that, but for all intents and purposes, let's have them keeping 6. So assuming they have the starting 3 and then Nickerson and Jones, the 6th spot between Darryl Roberts, Jeremy Clark, who wins it?
I'm going to go Darryl Roberts because they can stash away Jeremy Clark on the practice squad still.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Darryl Roberts is underrated by Jets fans. I don't think that makes him good, but I think he's at least a competent starter. I mean, he was really the Jets' number 2 corner at times last year when they would move screen inside the slot on third downs. He can hold his own. He's not an amazing corner by any stretch, but he's a starting to backup corner. I think he'll hold down that last spot. Scott, your opinion?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't really like Roberts much. I don't think he's all that good, but he does provide depth, and really that's all that they're going to need, hopefully. I think that Clark is a guy that maybe, if he passes through, could be a potential practice squad candidate just because of his size and his speed, but I feel like Roberts is a guy that they're going to want to have around just because he's an experienced hand. If, say, for instance, and this is not all that unlikely, Morris Claiborne were to get hurt, I really don't want to imagine a world where I'm watching Darryl Roberts start, but it could happen. So I guess they would have to look at it that way, where they want the guy that at least has a significant amount of experience over the kid that, unless, of course, he shows something, but I was going to say to this point, who hasn't shown much of anything.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So, Scott, you actually, for the first time in a long time, you timed your call a little off because for the first time you actually won't be the last caller. Somebody just called in right after you. So
wow.
I know, because normally most callers call in early and then you close it out, but no, we're glad to have another caller on.
Sure.
So I'm going to give you 3 questions, quick hitting questions. Then you can do your plugs. We might have to do a shortened, abridged version of it. And
sure.
Then we're going to go close off the show. But 3 questions. I want a surprise cut, a surprise guy to make the team, and a bold preseason prediction. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the preseason, but at least a prediction you're going to make before the preseason starts.
All right, I'm just going to have fun with this. It's going to be, let's see, bold prediction, Terrell Pryor doesn't make the team. Let's see, surprise cut, and surprise guy who makes it. Oh, man, this is a tough one to think about. Let's say surprise cut. Let's go with Justin Burris, just off the top of my head. And, again, I'm just having fun with this. This is, like, not even anything that I'm necessarily expecting. I'm just going to do that deal where it's like, this could happen. So if it happens, I'll look like I knew what I was talking about. And surprise guy making the team.
Literally me every time I say something.
Fahey, this is why we get along, despite sometimes we joke about me being old or you being too young. This is why we get along so well. I'm trying to think of who I would have as the surprise guy making the team. Man, it's a tough one. I guess I'll go with Trey McBride.
All right. Yeah, no, that's my guy as well. All right, Scott, thank you so much for calling in. We'll give you the mic to do the TOJ plugs, unless you want us to mute you, and you can do the official 5-minute plug at the end of this call. But I know
whatever's easier for you, boys. It's up to you.
We'll actually, if you have time, we're going to put you back on mute because I think Kyle wants to do his little Mount Rushmore thing again with you. So.
What do you mean? You know what, Ben? That's a quality segment that I've introduced to the show. So
no, that wasn't demeaning. I guess I shouldn't have called it little. I meant like, That
was spiteful.
Sorry, my apologies, Kyle. All right, Scott. So we're going to.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I love listening to the show anyway, so I'll listen on mute.
Oh, well, thank you. World's biggest fan. 10-15 minutes. We're going to do one last caller, then Scott, you're on to the plug.
Christ, Scott.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Scott's clearly doing something.
Scott is like on a treadmill with like a Russian jumpsuit on.
All right. More power to him. All right, so we're going to close out the show with 646. You were on the line. Thank you for calling in, man. What's your name? Where are you from?
What's up, man? My name is Joe, and I'm from New York. Right now I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, though.
All right, well, thanks for calling in, man. First-time caller. We're glad to have you. Joe, we'll start it off with, obviously, the thing everybody's been talking about. Sam Darnold, do you think he should be the Week 1 starter? Manish Mehta came on our show yesterday and said, from all things he's heard, he expects him to be the Week 1 starter. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a good thing for the organization, or do you think that they should sit him behind McCown for at least a few weeks?
No, obviously, being a fan, wanting to see him out there. But I do think that he continues to make these strides that he's making. And, just off of the practice today alone, the way he bounces back, the way everyone kind of follows him, this kid's the real deal. He's a generational talent. So I think the quicker we get him out there, a lot of people say negative things about the Jets wide receivers. I think we have a deeper group than, most teams. I think that's better for a rookie quarterback than just saying have, one Julio Jones and then a bunch of guys at tuck. So I think he's set up. I think our GM did a good job to put us in place to actually have this kid go out there and excel. Outside of maybe an injury or two to the offensive line or a receiver or something like that where it makes it a little sketchy for him to go out there, I think we should definitely start Week 1.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And you call him once in a generational talent, and that's something that Jets fans certainly perk their ears when they hear. I mean, if he is in fact what you say and what a lot of people are talking about, I mean, that would be absolutely incredible for Jets Nation and could potentially end a 50-year Super Bowl drought. So no pressure for Sam Darnold. You kind of talked about something that I was going to ask you. Indirectly, you mentioned how a team might have Julio Jones and then bad wide receiver depth or whatever, and you like the Jets wide receiver depth. It came up on Jets Twitter today. Somebody had posted, I think it was a Giants account, had posted, Jets versus Giants by position groups, and he basically had quarterback Giants, running back Giants, wide receiver Giants. I mean, the entire thing was Giants. So obviously biased. We released our own version, which is probably also biased. I released my own version. My apologies. I released my own version, which is probably also biased, but towards the other way. Joe, I want to get your thoughts on this. So let's go through the line here pretty quickly. So let's go through the different positional groups, comparing between the Jets and Giants. And the reason I bring up your Julio Jones thing is because I guess we'll start with wide receiver just so there's some sort of a segue. I gave the edge to the Giants in this one purely because of OBJ. However, I will say I would much rather have the Jets' depth than the Giants' depth. Yes, they have Sterling Shepard, but outside of that, who else is on that team that is going to be a consistent contributor? The Jets have 4 guys who've had 800-yard-plus seasons. They have 2 guys who are extremely young and have had both breakout seasons in the last seasons that they played. A guy in Terrell Pryor who had 1,000 yards 2 years ago, Jermaine Kearse, a reliable veteran, etc. So we'll start with the wide receivers. Who would you give the edge to out of the Jets versus the Giants?
Well, I mean, I'm as biased of a Jets fan as there really is, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, the Giants are pretty stacked. A healthy Odell, but I don't know. We haven't seen Barkley, but I'd be absolutely shocked if he's right there, right off the rip with Gurley and Bell and Zeke and these guys. You didn't mention Evan Ingram, who I don't even know if he's a tight end, but whatever he was last year with no Shepard and no Odell for a lot of it and no Brandon Marshall, that kid tore it up. Yeah. I wish we had him on the Jets. Hopefully this kid Hernan or Leggett, someone steps up and we have that. But, Robbie Anderson, this guy is an absolute wide receiver 1. I looked at the Dolphins, so to speak, and Devontae Parker, guys taken in the first round, John Ross for the Bengals, etc. This kid went undrafted, probably would have had 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns last year if McCown didn't go down. We didn't get stuck watching Bryce Petty for 4 games. I definitely think out of that draft class, which is Shepard, Robbie Anderson is right there with your Mike Thomas. We just don't have your Breeze, So, it's kind of tough. Yeah, they have Odell. But, a healthy Enunwa I think is better than Shepard. I don't know too much with Terrell Pryor. I don't know if that's just going to be someone that doesn't make the team or doesn't make that big of an impact. But I do like the depth a lot better.
Yeah, no, and you started touching on some other Giants position groups. Evan Ingram, I'd probably give the Giants the edge on tight end just because the Jets have a bunch of unproven guys. And running back, although, yeah, you're right, Barkley hasn't proven anything. Just going off of, draft season, I guess, I'll give him Barkley. So let's go to the quarterback position. Who do you think is in a better position? Now, obviously, if you were starting a franchise, you'd much rather have Sam Darnold than Eli Manning. But purely for playing in 2018 only, which quarterback room would you rather have? Eli Manning and Kyle Uletta, or Teddy Bridgewater, Josh McCown, and Sam Darnold?
Well, I'd definitely go with the Jets. And I think for the first time in a long time for the Jets, we were so lucky that the Browns picked before us, and the Giants had such a freak show with their head coach, and he treated Eli Manning like shit, that got the ownership so twisted that, they went for Barkley, which I think he's going to be an absolute stud. But I think after Eli Manning, shits the bed after a year or two, they're going to look back and say, goddamn, why did we take a running back and let this kid fall to the Jets? And, the Browns, I'm a Baker Mayfield fan, but, not at pick 1 and not at pick 3. I think we got so lucky, and it's unbelievable. I think any other time, the Giants snagged Darnold, and, if there was any other team besides the Browns that won. So I go with the Jets all the way, and it's probably one of the best feelings ever to actually say that, because I have not been able to say that, and I've been a fan my whole life. So the Jets actually have probably one of the best quarterback situations in the league right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. All right, heading into offensive line, and then we'll do the defense. Who do you give the edge to? Both teams have definitely struggled protecting the quarterback. My pick, Kyle, was the Jets, because the Giants, I would say, had more obvious struggles protecting their quarterback. But I think they're both pretty bad. So, Joe, your thoughts, Jets or Giants, who has the slight edge in the offensive line?
They got Solder. They picked up that guy Hernandez, who I think is an absolute animal. But they were just atrocious. Eric Flowers is horrendous. I don't even know who their center is at this point. I'd give it to the Jets just because, Spencer Long is
Weston Richburg? Weston Richburg?
Yeah, no, he's gone. The Jets were going to sign him. Richburg's gone. But that's the thing. They have just whoever at center, and, you can't really say anything about a rookie guard because we haven't seen him play at all. So the Jets grabbing Spencer Long is going to let Brian Winters and Carpenter not look like crap. Winters is healthy. I think Shell going into year 3, he's been a hell of a player for a 4th-round pick. And, Beachum, not only just for the money and the smart contract that McCagnon gave, but, he's been pretty solid. I don't think he's, elite, but he's definitely not someone that's going to, bomb us and make us look horrible. So I definitely give it to the Jets. I think we got some young guys for depth that are going, unnoticed that people like Brandon Braden. He was on our practice squad last year. The guy's pretty much a stud. Dakota Shipley. So we got some guys. We got some depth. Everywhere you look on this roster, we're just kind of loaded with youth. And, really just need to keep letting guys grow and playmakers, make plays. You guys were talking about cornerback. I wanted to touch on that. I really think, just looking at this last 2 years draft class, Derrick Jones from last year, Parry Nickerson from this year, just, we're hitting on all, I don't know. I feel like McCadden's really hit a home run on these last 2 drafts, especially if all this hype is real about this year's draft class.
No, definitely. I think we talked about that at the beginning of the show. It's just, you look at the difference and look, it's been 5 practices, so all these guys could theoretically bust. But you look at the difference in his class in 2015 to now, even just after the draft, how I'm feeling about it. And yeah, I guess it's different taking a defensive end versus a quarterback. But even the other picks, I'm much more confident in this year's crop of rookies than I was 3 years ago with his 2015 class, who, by the way, there might only be one guy remaining in Leonard Williams by the time the season starts. Now, Lorenzo Malta could still make it or whatnot, but he missed on quite a few picks there. Devin Smith, Bryce Petty, Jonathan Harrison. So bringing it back to what you said, we'll go faster for the defense because I think this is where the Jets really take over here. Because the Giants won the skill positions just because they kind of have, I would say the Jets have better depth at their positions, but the Giants have a better headliner. They have the OBJ, the Saquon Barkley, the Evan Ingram. Going through the defensive line, I said Jets. I said Leonard Williams, Steve McClendon, Nathan Shepard, Henry Anderson. I think it's close, and I will say I counted Olivier Vernon as a linebacker, even though he plays with his hands in the dirt, just to make it a fair comparison as far as the 3-4, because he does play technically an outside linebacking position. So who would you give the edge to?
Jesus. I don't know. They got snacks over there. They got rid of JPP, but they do have Vernon. We got Leo. I like everything I'm hearing about Shepard. I love Anderson from the Colts, but, I don't know. We got guys that aren't proven. So, unfortunately, I'll go D-line with the Giants just until I see our guys in the field. Do I think by week 4 I change my thing? Yeah, I really, really do. But for now, I go there. As far as linebacker, corner, safety, the Jets just wipe them away. I mean, they were an atrocious defense last year. I don't know what the Giants' issue is, but I don't really. I think they picked up not even a good player from the Rams at linebacker.
Alec Ogletree.
Corner. Outside of Landon Collins and Snacks, I don't really know all that much, that they got going on for them on defense.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's where I went Jets down the line. All right, Joe, we're going to close with you the same way we tried to close with Scott. Surprise cut, surprise guy to make it, and one bold preseason prediction. The prediction doesn't have to be about preseason, but something at least said before preseason.
All right. As far as surprise cut, oh, my Lord. I don't
Put you on the spot here. I know.
Yeah, it's definitely hard because I don't know that it would be that much of a surprise. Jesus Christ.
See?
Everybody has struggled with this question.
Yeah.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
I know it's not a knowledge thing. Well, yeah, I was trying to throw out names, but
talking about Darryl Roberts, I think he's underrated. I think he could step in for Claiborne. You know what? I'll go surprise cut Morris Claiborne. And the reason is I think we might turn around. We like what Derrick Jones and Nickerson are doing, but if Rashad Breeland comes into play, I think we sign him long-term. He's young, and, I'd be shocked, very shocked, but I don't know. I'm going to go Morris Claiborne right there.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I definitely like bringing in Rashad Breeland, but I'd probably say that we should probably bring on if we're going to cut any of the veteran quarterbacks, we're probably cutting Buster Screen. He carries a higher cap hit, and he's definitely less consistent than Morris Claiborne. And we just signed Morris Claiborne to a deal. But I know we put you on the spot there. Can we get one bold preseason prediction?
We're going to trade our first-round pick and a player for Khalil Mack.
Oh, boy, that's a bold pick. Kyle, if that happens, we do backflips here at the Jet Take. If the Jets are able to acquire Khalil Mack, I don't care. Give him your first. That's a once-in-a-generation
my firstborn
right
child. What are you talking about?
He is, and that's the thing. John Gruden's over there, that old-school mentality. He did us the favor by taking Hackenberg and then kind of just letting him go so we didn't have to shit on the poor kid. He's really good friends with McCagnon, and they haven't even talked. It is a dire, dire need for our team. That's whether Donahue and Malden step up or Shepard, turns into what Wilkerson was supposed to, blah, blah, blah. That's a need. So either Bridgewater is going to either get traded to, the Jaguars for Dante Fowler, maybe something like that, or we just go all in and say the hell with it. And I would not be upset not watching the first round of next year's draft if Khalil Mack was on our defense with guys like, Lee and, May, Adams. I just think that completes it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the thing that you're talking about is a lot of people underrate the Jets. So if it's a before-season pick, and look, I don't think this will happen, but we asked bold. We wanted a bold pick. If it's before the season, a lot of people underrate the Jets. A team like the Raiders is thinking, hey, maybe that's a top 5 pick right there we can acquire, and especially if you give other picks or a player or whatnot. Joe, I like it. It was bold. Before we let you go, give out your Twitter so our listeners can drop you a follow.
The handle is Joe Rossi _777, and it's New Jack City, JETS with dashes in between. Just give me a follow. I'm definitely bold. I absolutely fucking hate the Patriots and everything about them, entire New England anything, so you'll see me out there destroying them. My younger brother's a Dolphins fan, so I despise them and love the fact that Parker is a complete bust. And I'm a diehard fucking Jets fan. I think this is a good year. We go 7-9 to 9-7 and roll into next year with #1 cap space, and we finally pull this shit the fuck off.
I love it. Joe, thank you so much for calling in, man. Hopefully we hear from you again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You guys kick ass. Thanks for getting me on here.
All right, thanks, man. All right, we're gonna bring Scott back on the show, but again, Scott is about to get yeah, I didn't want to say it. That's Kyle's word, I guess. Scott, we're gonna bring you back on, but we have another caller. We have CJ on the line after you, so we're gonna bring Scott on. He can do his TOJ plugs. We can get him out of here. We can send him off with a nice Jet Take send off, and then we're gonna go to CJ and close out the show. So we're back on the Jet Take. Welcome back, man. Your main reason here is to plug what's going on, Turn on the Jets this week. Sans music, I guess. How's it going?
Always happy to make way for CJ, whose podcast I did the other day, by the way. So am I going right into the plugs now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, we could theoretically. Well, you know what, Scott? It could get crowded. I guess do the plugs now. We could have an overlap here. Bring CJ on, but do the plugs now just so you don't have to do it when if we have 4 people on. All right.
All right, yeah, no problem. So real quick, I'll do this as quickly as I can. First of all, I want to say you guys did a great job with Manish. Easily the best interview I heard with Manish all day yesterday. So great job, guys. And I think that you did a terrific job with him. If anybody hasn't listened to that yet, go do it because it was an outstanding interview. And I think Manish is actually the only beat reporter I've never talked to. So I'm glad he's finally made his way to the Jet Take, and hopefully he'll come back. I know, Kyle, you said he's already a friend of the podcast. So there you go. There it is.
He embraced friend of the podcast.
Yeah, he sent me a DM later. He was excited to be a part of the friend of the podcast group.
Listen, all I can say is Manish embraced it. It's officially a thing now, Ben. Sorry, that's just the way it is. What are you going to do? But anyway, so we've got other great shows up at Turn on the Jets Digital. The Boss was the special guest judge this week on What's Your Point. I know Paulie called in earlier. We've gotten a great response to that. It's been a lot of fun. It's the weekly debate show. It's modified presidential rules. And then Paulie and Dalvin basically just go back and forth about whatever the hot topics were with the Jets. This week, we did a really fun one, too, inspired by your pal Michael Mania, Ben. He came up with the idea of if the Jets did a Royal Rumble, who would win the Royal Rumble? And I can't remember what the answers were, but that was a fun one, especially. Yeah, Nathan Shepard was one of the answers, but it was a lot of fun. Adams, I think, was one of them too, but it was a lot of fun because we both, all 3 of us actually, Dalvin, Paulie, and I, were all wrestling fans, so that was a fun topic. If you haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, check them out. Connor Rogers and Joe Cavaroso are the 2 judges. And did you guys announce who's going to be your guest on the show next week yet?
Yeah, Chris Nimbley.
Okay, so it's going to be a double dose of Nimbley next week. You're going to get silly version of Chris Nimbley with us on What's Your Point, and then you'll get serious beat writer Chris Nimbley talking about actual news with you guys on the Jet Take. So you get both sides of Chris Nimbley's personality next week. So that's what's going on there. Michael Manning is kicking off Know Your Foe. That'll be coming up sometime early next week before the Falcons game. And then I think you guys have something in the works as far as a crossover with the Jet Take, right?
Yeah, we do. We have yet to announce that as well, but Michael and I are working out the kinks.
All right, sounds good. So that'll be a.
Wasn't aware of that.
What did he say? What did you say, Faye?
He said he wasn't aware of that.
Oh yeah, well this is the thing, Faye. As you know, Ben periodically auditions people to take your place. We both know this, and so that's probably what this is.
No, in actuality, I was a guest host I was a guest on Michael's Know Your Foe, but we ended up going 40 minutes, and Scott thought it was a little too similar to the Jet Take. So it was kind of a hybrid Jet Take, Know Your Foe.
Yes.
And so we might as well release it. Kyle, I promise, I was not cheating on you.
I was, I'm just kidding. And Fahey, it's no different than you doing the Instagram show with Armstrong.
I've been cheating on Ben for years and various different people.
You are such a slut, Zeki. Oh, my God.
I am the slut of TOJ, and I'm proud of it.
All right.
That's right. So anyway, yeah, because CJ's probably cursing me out right now. But anyway, continuing, Joe Blewett's got film room. He's got a brand new one with Mark Schofield talking about the quarterbacks. So obviously Darnold, Bridgewater, and McCown. They break down the film, and he's got some really great guests coming up next. Eric McMillan, former two-time Pro Bowler, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's going to come on with Joe to break down the film of the Jets secondary, and then the week after that, he's going to break down tight ends and wide receivers with a guy who made a living covering those guys and is now actually a defensive coordinator in the Arena Football League, Marcus Coleman. So a lot of good things going on. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, do it, and go watch these episodes on YouTube. It's outstanding. You can download the audio too, and I recommend that as well, but the video really tells the tale because you have all the plays that you can look at and see Joe go through them. And as we all know, and Joe was on the show last week, Joe is as good as it gets when it comes to breaking down film. So Film Room is available too. Obviously, my show, Play Like a Jet, Fridays, we're going to get into part 6 of our discussion with Albert Breer on the road to Sam Darnold. So many interesting little nuggets that he's given out over the past 5 weeks, and there's plenty more where that came from this week. So brand new one on Friday, and obviously we've been doing nightly training camp recaps with Darryl Slater, who's also, I believe, a friend of the pod. Is that right, Kyle?
Yes. Definitely friend of the pod.
Definite friend of the podcast, but he's been...
The club is growing, Scott.
The club, the Jet Take friend... Listen, we should actually make like a plaque that contains the names of all of the friends of the podcast. That's what I'm thinking we should do.
I was thinking a shirt from the TOJ store. Because like, we got to start branding the Jet Take, and then
we just put the Jet Take front of the podcast, and then we send it to them as a complimentary gift.
Yeah.
I bet you could get Manish to wear it.
Yeah.
He wears it just at a press conference. I'm down for it.
We can definitely get Derrick Jones to wear that.
It would be kind of the same way that if you remember when John Idzik at the press conference for the when he did the Idzik 12, the 12 draft picks, and Manish said he would hitchhike or he would walk back to New York from the draft if Idzik used all those picks. And he said something like, all right, Manish, time to hitchhike. That could be your thing, man. You could have him wear that shirt and really spread the word about the Jet Take and the friend of the podcast program that you guys have going on. But
it's a really lucrative program, as you can tell.
It really is. I'm telling you, everybody wants to join in. Manish is happy to be a friend of the podcast now. We're all friends of the podcast. And pretty soon, Chris Nimbley will join the group as a friend of the podcast. But Darryl Slater's coming on with me every night to recap training camp. And, man, there were some interesting nuggets today that you can download as soon as this show is over. Darryl talked about how Antonio Cromartie was giving some advice to Derrick Jones today, another big day for Mr. Jones. There was a little scrum between teammates today. Todd Bowles was acting like he was auditioning for head of the CIA today with how secretive he was about injuries. So you could check that out too. So lots of great stuff going on at Turn on the Jets Digital, boys. And like I said, I'm really proud of you. That was a great interview with Manish, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the Jet Take continue to take off as we get ready for the 2018 season.
Agreed. All right, Scott. It was a pleasure having you on. Kyle, your thoughts? We'll have one small transition just because I know you were on CJ's podcast. So we're going to bring on CJ Desdemone onto the podcast. It's been a while, CJ. I don't mean to say anything.
Friend of the podcast, CJ DeSimone.
He is back.
How you doing tonight, guys? Scotty, listen, you know I love you. You know you can go on and do whatever plugs that you need to. Come on, man. The love is there. The love is there.
CJ, I love you too, brother.
Right, man, that means a lot to me. Let me tell you, it really does.
I know Scott Mason is the head of the Turn on the Jets digital podcast network. So that's high praise right there, CJ. All right, we'll have one question for the four of us to talk about, and then I'll go to CJ for some smaller questions. I guess the one big one that we've been talking about the entire show, and I guess now is a good time to bring it up. Because CJ, we really haven't talked to you in a few months. Honestly, I don't know if Sam Darnold was the quarterback of the Jets last time. So based off Manish Mehta's quote from yesterday, and it's been kind of the driving question to each caller we've had, but I think it's one that we can really kind of go in depth here with the four of us. Manish said that from the people who are close to the situation, from everything that he's heard, he expects Sam Darnold to be the Week 1 starter. CJ, I'll start with you since it's been a while. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a smart thing for the Jets to be doing? Do you think if it's because he noted that it's not going to be because he actually really flat out earned it, and that's not a negative thing, because his point was that if it's even close, they're going to go with Darnold. They don't really expect Darnold to be a better quarterback than Josh McCown is right now. Josh McCown's 39, has been doing this for almost 2 decades, has been everywhere, has seen everything, has a year in the offense, whatever. They're just going with, if it's even close, go with the 21-year-old, get him the reps, and let him improve. Do you think that's the route, or do you think they should be going with the more traditional approach of, give him the clipboard, let him watch McCown for a few weeks, maybe even more? CJ, I'll open up with you, and then we can open up a discussion between the four of us.
I think the way that Todd Bowles is handling this situation is perfect, in my opinion. They are going to give Sam Darnold every opportunity to win this starting quarterback job, and we saw it last year with Christian Hackenberg, that they force-fed him the ball, and he just couldn't hack it. They saw it with we saw it with Bryce Petty, where they force-fed him the ball, and he just couldn't hack it. So, the bottom line is that they know that Sam Darnold is the real deal. I'm very confident that Sam Darnold may end up being the Week 1 starter, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't. But make no bones about it, the old Todd Bowles that would have favored his veterans over his rookies, I believe that's dead and gone. I think we saw that being dead and gone last year, because he knows he's got a young and hungry team. And I say this all the time on my show, the 53-man roster that we see take the field on Week 1, there is not going to be one person on that roster that was handed their spot. They will have earned that spot through blood, sweat, tears, and guts. And as far as Sam Darnold is concerned, he's got to earn his stripes like everybody else. But if it's close, and I mean marginally close, you got to put the rookie in.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You just look at, in recent years, because this is a trend or a discussion or a talking point about, rookie quarterbacks. It's really been around since, I remember when I was 9 years old and the Jets had drafted Mark Sanchez and they were talking about it. But you really think about since that time, think about all the rookie quarterbacks that have come out and started and played well. Deshaun Watson, Marcus Mariota, Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff. The list goes on. And then think about who are the guys that sat, didn't play the majority, played less than half their games the first year, and then were successful. There aren't many. Patrick Mahomes last year sat all of his rookie year. I think he could be an exception, but that was a different situation with the guy in Alex Smith who took the Chiefs back to the playoffs, and that was a playoff team, really. So, yeah, CJ, I completely agree with you. I think if it's even close, they should go to him. If they decide to give it to McCown, I think they should go to Darnold at least by Week 6. I think that's the time to get it to him if you're going to do it. I think Week 6 you play Indianapolis. You give Darnold doesn't have to play the 3 games in 10 days stretch that they have at the beginning of the season. He avoids Jacksonville. He plays Indianapolis at home, regular game. I think that could be a good place to fit him in. Scott, let's get your thoughts on the matter. How do you think the Jets should do this?
Damn it, Scott.
Yeah, I agree with you and CJ. And actually, CJ and I talked about this on his podcast over the weekend. If you haven't had a chance to listen, go ahead. CJ, I love you, so anybody who hasn't been listening to CJ's podcast, go ahead and make sure that you make time for that. But I think that what you said, Ben, summed it up really well. I will correct you on one minor error there. You mentioned about Goff. Goff actually sat for more than half of his rookie season. It's not a big deal. This is the thing that drives me nuts. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all thing. So, I love Joe Caporoso. He's the boss of TOJ and everything. But we've disagreed on this. Joe basically wants to just shove Darnold out there. I'm fine with it if, as CJ said, it's relatively close, right? Or Darnold at least has worked out the kinks and he's ready to go. What I don't want to see is if Sam Darnold, as we know, has some problems mechanically, if he doesn't get those fixed and Jeremy Bates isn't comfortable with him, I don't want him starting right away because if he starts to struggle and throw interceptions, he's going to revert back to the bad mechanics, and then it's going to set him back. So I'm confident that Darnold can be where he needs to be week 1, but if he's not, and Jeremy Bates doesn't think he's ready to start or thinks it would be a potential, it could hinder his progress, then I'm okay with, like you said, Ben, letting him sit a couple of weeks. I don't think it'll be anything more beyond that. It's very, very, very difficult to envision a situation where he's going to sit for an entire season. I really can't see that. I know there were some people who had that opinion, and those people are crazy. I think at most you're going to see him sit a handful of games, and like you said, maybe at the latest week 6. But I do think that Manish is right, and obviously he has sources, and I've heard the same thing from people that I talked to that are around the team, as far as guys that cover it, Darryl Slater being among them, is that the Jets basically want Darnold to win the job. It doesn't mean that they're going to push him towards it, but it also means they're not going to hold him back. So this isn't going to be like Hackenberg where it's kick gloves. They're going to put him out there. He's going to get every opportunity to succeed or fail, and if he succeeds, he starts. If he doesn't, then maybe he waits a little while. But I'm going to defer to Jeremy Bates here. I think if Jeremy – basically – I'll trust his opinion. If Bates thinks that Darnold's ready to go week 1, do it. If not, let him sit a little bit. But I think that the people that say you should sit X person or that say you should definitely start that guy and it's dumb to sit anybody, I like I said, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all thing. I think it's different for each guy. Darnold's an interesting case because he's different than Rosen, who is much more mechanically perfect, I guess you would say. And Ben, we talked a lot about that leading up to the draft. So I think Rosen is a guy that you wouldn't necessarily worry about reverting to anything because obviously his mechanics are very, very strong. With Darnold, it's got to be where it's got to be. So that's kind of the way I look at it. If he's ready or even close, throw him out there. If he's not and Jeremy Bates thinks it would be a bad idea, let him sit for a couple of games. But I'm in no rush. Remember, guys, it's a marathon, not a sprint. All we're looking for here is a situation where look, ultimately at the end of 2018, if we ask the question to ourselves, are we excited about Sam Darnold heading into 2019? Do we like the promise that he showed in 2018? If the answer to that question is yes, nothing else matters. We won't care that he started week 1 or week 4 or week 5. We won't care that the Jets went 6-10 or 10-6 or whatever. It's all about what we get out of Darnold for this season and what we think is going to happen going forward in terms of optimism. How optimistic are we based on what we see in 2018? So whatever leads us to the best path to his long-term success is what I'm interested in, and I trust Jeremy Bates to be the guy that makes that decision. So essentially that's my take on it. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle on the people that say start him immediately and the people that say sit him. I think it's got to be whatever Bates decides because he's the one watching him in practice. He's the one that knows the scheme. He's the one that knows how good or bad the mechanics are coming along. And so that's really where I'm at. I'm going to trust Jeremy Bates.
Agreed. All right, we'll do one more discussion question, Scott. CJ, we'll go back to start with you. This is a question we mentioned with our caller Joe a little bit earlier. And it was kind of the point that this could be really personnel-wise the first year that Todd Bowles is going to have the complete ability to really run his defense. And that, what I mean by that is, he has 2 strong press man corners. He has 3 quality safeties that he can, move interchangeably. He has guys in the defensive line that can generate interior pass rush, which is really important. And probably most important of all, he has speed, and a lot of it between Darren Lee, Jamal Adams, even Perry Nickerson. There is speed in all 3 levels of this team, even going down to the defensive line. So my question to you, CJ, is how much better do you think this Jets defense is going to be from years past? Do you think it's going to be a noticeable jump? Or, like our caller Joe thought, do you think the lack of a pure edge rusher is still going to really hold this team back? To play devil's advocate, my response to him was, Bowles, obviously if he had a Khalil Mack or Dante Fowler even just a guy who could get after the quarterback, he'd obviously use him. but not having one isn't going to really hinder him in the way that not having a third safety or even reliable safeties or two press man corners or speed or whatnot would, because he generates his pressure from the interior. He generates his pressure from using safeties, using hybrids, using all sorts of unique blitzes, bringing corners on, cornerback slants or whatever, and just bringing them down on third down or whatnot. So my question to you, CJ, is how much better do you expect this defense to be leaps and bounds ahead of past Jets defenses due to this personnel, or do you think that lack of a pure edge rusher will still hold them back considerably?
I think the lack of a pure edge rusher will hold them back, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a holdback or a pullback as possible. So I think that I think the Jets defense overall still has the ability to be able to step out, still be able to how do I put this? To still be able to apply pressure on opposing quarterbacks using a little bit more of an unconventional manner than your traditional bull rush up the middle. So we may see a lot of exotic blitzes, exotic schemes, different guys coming in to initiate the pass rush. So it could be one of those things where it could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because when you have an edge rusher who the offense has to look out for, they could always design plays to run away from that person to effectively neutralize them. But see, when you have sort of like a pass rush by committee, where you could be sending safety blitzes, it could be quarterback blitzes, it could be linebacker blitzes, it could be stunt blitzes up the middle, it could be stunt blitzes to the side. You really don't know where the blitz is coming from. So that creates that variable factor. And the variable factor will put opposing offensive coordinators on edge, because they don't know where the blitz is coming from. They don't know what to expect it. Jets could line up in a base 3-4 and all of a sudden send 7 guys, and the opposing quarterback is looking around trying to cop a plea not to get his face broken. You know what I mean? So there could be a lot of exciting things. And I think that we're going to see a little bit more of a pass rush by committee as opposed to just being the assignment of one person.
Scott, your take?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a weird thing, because Bowles and Rex Ryan don't seem to really value that big-time outside rusher the way that a lot of other people do. And like you said, his defense doesn't necessarily rely on it. I think that it would absolutely help, but I will say this. I think when you don't have that guy, it makes it all the more important that you have corners that can press and that can cover properly. And I think Tremaine Johnson being added was a huge, huge addition, because, remember, last year the big problem was you had Claiborne, who was matched up against guys that were number one receivers, and so he was out of his depth. And then because of that, you had guys like Darryl Roberts and Buster Screen and Justin Burris covering number 2 receivers, and then they were out of their depth. And now you have Adams and May, who have to try and make sure that those guys who are out of their depth don't get burned, and now there's plays they can't make. So it's a domino effect. Well, now Johnson covers the number 1 wide receivers. He's right where he's supposed to be. Claiborne is covering number 2 receivers, which is really more what he's supposed to be doing. And because of that, now Adams and May, who have an extra year of experience, they're in position to make more plays and not have to necessarily be so scared about their cornerbacks getting toasted. So I think that this defense should be much improved. Again, I don't think that we're looking at a defense that's going to be like 2009 level or anything like that. We're not looking at the sack exchange level Jets defense, anything like that. We're not going to see Darrelle Revis level play. But I will say that I think the reason to be optimistic is that you have now a corner who basically provides a domino effect and lifts everybody else up, because he shifts everybody and makes it easier for the guys around him. And I think that now Adams will be free to maybe try and blitz a little more. You might see some more creative things from the linebackers. That's the other thing, too. Avery Williamson's actually a much better coverage linebacker than people think he is. Joe Blewett talked about that in his film review, which you can find at TurnOnTheJets.com and on YouTube. So that helps a little bit, too, because he's a much better coverage guy than Demario Davis. So that takes a little of the heat off of the safeties, too. So I think the Jets could be a solid to, maybe good defense. Not great, but solid to good if they employ their resources properly. Again, when it comes to the outside, you're probably looking at like David Bass being your leading sack guy. But if you can cobble together a couple of sacks here, a couple of sacks there, a couple of sacks here, a couple of sacks there, it's not the ideal situation. You'd love to have a Khalil Mack, and maybe they'll be able to get him or somebody else in free agency or the draft. But for now, having what you have, I think that the ability to have these guys be able to be employed as weapons in more ways than they were last year because you're more confident in the coverage back there with Johnson and Claiborne, I think that'll elevate the defense at least a little bit, if not significantly.
Scott, you're always one of the most in-depth and insightful people we have on the show. Thank you so much for calling in, man. You already did the plug, so I don't really know how to end this, but thank you for calling on. You guys can follow him at PlayLikeAJet1, and you can listen to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just go to Turn on the Jets, and you can find it. Scott, we're working on changing that Twitter username, correct?
Yes, you and I are collaborating on that, and Ben, how about we end it this way? You guys are doing a great job. Anybody who hasn't listened to the Manish interview, go listen. And you know what? Manish is a friend of the pod. Next week, Chris Nimbley will be a friend of the podcast. It's a movement that's growing. Anybody who is a listener of this show who calls in, they're a friend of the podcast. So it's a movement that Kyle started, and it's taking on a life of its own.
Well said, Scott. Thank you for calling in, man.
You got it, boys. Talk to you next week.
All right, CJ, we got a few minutes here to close out with you. It's been a while. It has been a while since we've got to talk to you.
You guys, I tell you, you guys got to get yourself on my show. The last time,
CJ,
Ben fell asleep.
I tried.
I know you tried. I could give Kyle credit. But Ben, who totally forgot. But it's okay.
I forget. Well, how's this for rude? I forgot.
Ben forgot about his child. I mean, I think
I don't even have a child. CJ, I'll say this: if you're so gracious enough to extend another invitation, our way, or at least my way, I will definitely make sure that we can find a time for me to record with you. You've called into our show so much. You've retweeted so much of our stuff. I'd love to come on your show and help you out because I'm sure your listeners are dying to hear the voice of Ben Blessington.
But
CJ,
absolutely.
Fun fact, CJ has 3 of our shirts.
He does have the only Jet Take shirts in existence because as soon as we released those, we joined TOJ and had to scrap them. So CJ, you have the only money that has ever been in
Super Bowl 69 one.
Yes.
He paid the only money that's ever been involved.
Is
I
Woody
have
Johnson.
that one.
And
I have the Woody Johnson one.
What's the third one?
So, and I have the old Sack Authority.
Oh, yeah.
That one aged out quickly. That one aged out quickly.
Well, I have to say one thing. If you guys talk to your boss over there, Joe Caparoso, and you guys make a T-shirt with your show's logo, I will rock it as long as you guys send it to me.
Wow. I think if we stay more consistent and continually hit our Wednesday at 8:00 time slot, because we'll do it for 8 weeks, and then I'll take a bit of the fall here. I'll occasionally burn out a little bit, and Kyle and I might miss a week. Say whatever. If we can continually hold our week, and continue to grow the podcast. I think he'll definitely give us one. I do want to give a thank you to all our listeners because no matter what our schedule's like, no matter when Kyle and I flake, we consistently put up good numbers with just our loyal fan base. So thank you so much to those who stick with us through our incompetence. But CJ, let's hop right into it. Let's talk a little bit about.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Bashaud Breeland. He's kind of the hot name on the market right now for Jets fans. A top corner on the market. Signed with the Panthers, got hurt, got cut. now back on the market, been a free agent for a while. What are your thoughts on the Jets potentially adding him to the secondary?
If they did add him to the secondary, it would probably just be another camp body. Obviously health would be a factor, so you probably would be able to get him at a bargain basement rate. If I were the Jets, I would take a flyer on him just so that way to continue to have even more competition at the corner, at the corner positions. I mean, Trumaine Johnson is just a beast. I mean, so much so that, current reports over the last 4 days of practice, basically, at one point they stopped throwing to his side of the field. So he does have the potential to be a shutdown type of corner, which does bodes well because, again, it takes heat off of Mo Claiborne. So, again, with Mo Claiborne's injury history, you still kind of sit a little bit on pins and needles, and that's where you hope, all the players like Derrick Jones are going to step up. You have a couple of other good corners. I mean, hey, there's even possibility, Buster Screen can still be able to come in and still have an impact. A lot of fans are talking about him being cut, him not being able to make this squad. So there are going to be there's going to be a lot of interesting battles, a lot of the minutia that goes on. With these training camp battles, you have rookies standing out. I mean, hell, take a look at Trenton Cannon right now. Do you really think, with Elijah McGuire's injury, that we really would have so much attention focused on Trenton Cannon? No, I mean, he still has some things that he has to clean up. But, again, I'm using the running back class as an example. But if they were to bring Breland in, take a flyer on him, bring him in, and see how he works out. Most of all, can he stay healthy? Or is it just going to be another Morris Claiborne 2.0?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you as well. But I think, if you're going to have a guy who's injury prone, I mean, I might as well have two. Because, I mean, if Morris Claiborne goes down, who's behind him? I know we're excited about Perry Nickerson. We're excited about Derrick Jones. And, I guess Buster Screen's been here for a while. But at the very least, even if he goes down, you have Rashad Breeland. And then, I guess if he goes down, it basically gives you another layer of defense to putting Buster Screen on the outside, which is something no Jets fan wants to see this year. Moving forward, this is kind of a trend, and we talked about it a little bit on this podcast, but I think it's becoming even more relevant with the fact that I think the Jets are going to keep Trenton Cannon on this team, partly due to Elijah McGuire's injury, partly due to he's having a good camp. What do you think about the growing movement in the NFL of just having a running back stable, not necessarily having a Le'Veon Bell, Saquon Barkley, et cetera, Adrian Peterson back in the day? You look at the past two Super Bowl winners, and they've all had just kind of a running back by committee approach, like Garrett Blunt, James White, Dion Lewis. For the Eagles, they had Jay Ajayi and Corey Clement as well. The Jets, while I'm not going to make Super Bowl comparisons for them, they brought in Isaiah Correll to have that big, ground and pound running back. They have Bilal Powell, who's the veteran pass-catching back, who I think this is probably his last year in green and white. You have Elijah McGuire, who I think is going to take Bilal Powell's role as soon as he leaves, just that burst pass-catching running back. And Trenton Cannon, who does a similar thing, but he's more on the speed side. He's kind of your speedster running back who can also do some kick returning stuff. So you have, almost thunder, lightning, and then I guess fire, I guess. So what do you think about just the kind of the growing movement in the NFL of having a whole running back stable? No guy is really amazing, but together they form a nice, trio for you. What do you think about the growing movement in the NFL, and then how the Jets are incorporating it into their roster?
I think you're starting to see a lot more teams incorporate that type. I mean, you just brought it up. You're starting to see a lot of teams go with that running back by committee approach, and that's because, if you really think about it, the running back position is kind of sort of evolved, especially in the NFL, with it being a passing league right now, where as opposed to in the 90s and early 2000s, where we primarily saw a lot of run packages where you had your star running back, you had a star fullback, you had your third down back, you have your H back, you have your scat back or whoever. Now being able to have that running back by committee, one will definitely take the load, so that way it takes the load off of one particular player. So now you guys can share carries, which is good because then, two, you could also play to a player's situational strengths. If you have a back on your roster who is particularly good on converting third downs, you can utilize him again in that third down role. If you have a specific back who is particularly good at catching passes out of the back screen, a la bubble screens, possible, running back pops and stuff like that, you could utilize that person. If you have another running back who is one of those guys that once they hit the hole, they can accelerate and get to that second level, you have that particular back. So it's good to have sort of a jack of all trades but master of none. See, the Carolina Panthers were fortunate enough to land Christian McCaffrey in last year's draft. Okay, where Christian McCaffrey is a little bit of the Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, can catch the ball, he can run with power, he's got deceptive speed. The kid can take a beating and he could still get up and keep going. But he's also one of those guys that if he could make you miss on a move and he'll hit the second level before anybody even realizes he's gone. That's what we have a little bit with Trenton Cannon. And having Trenton Cannon and his elusive speed back there does give the Jets a distinct advantage. Now, that being said, it puts pressure on Elijah McGuire for him to be able to rehab properly and be able to come back 100% from that injury. It's also going to put pressure on both Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell because now the two of them have to look out for Trenton Cannon and his ability to be able to carry the ball. Now we're also leaving out Thomas Rawls. Thomas Rawls has been a little bit of a hit and miss in camp. You have good flashes where the kid, reminds you of the Beast Mode 2.0, and then you have others where they're handing the ball off and he's fumbling. And then there's also Trenton Cannon who went through the same issues. There were a couple of muffed handoffs, that he did not execute and ended up turning into turnovers. Trenton Cannon, really his main priority, it looks like they're trying to incorporate him into special teams because of his speed. But here's a problem. He's muffing kickoffs. He's muffing punts. We can't have that for a guy whose quickness is going to be his ticket to this 53-man roster. So, but these are all things that can be cleaned up. So, and we're still very early in camp. So a lot could happen between now and when we finally open up week 1, against the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. There's a lot of stuff that could happen between now and then. Guys get hurt. They bring guys in. They don't bring guys in. Players get cut. Some other players get signed. You're going to see a lot of names come and go, and a lot of players are going to be given opportunities. And again, I circumvent back to my mantra for this upcoming season: the 53-man roster that you see taking the field week 1 in Detroit. Every single player, and I do mean every single player on that team, will have earned the roster spot that they have because there are no gimmies in this camp. And this is the first time in a long time that we can take a look at Jets training camp and literally every single position, save for the punter, okay, there is an actual competition going on where the incumbent could possibly be unseated.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I guess the long snapper as well, but you're right. And I think that, there's obviously the cliche competition breeds, excellence, but I think, and you see that every year in training camp for the Jets, but it's something certainly Todd Bowles has hung his hat on. I think you're seeing it less so this year in starting positions. I think that was more sort of last year's type of thing. We just kind of had a lot of guys competing for starting jobs. I think you're going to see it more now for depth. Kyle and I had talked about some of it earlier on, but, the backup guard, spots, who's getting the 6th wide receiver spot, who's going to be that 4th running back on the team, the 3rd tight end, is Teddy Bridgewater going to, well, obviously Teddy Bridgewater is going to make the team. Is Teddy Bridgewater going to stay on the team? The fullback composition, the outside linebacking depth, all that type of stuff. You're right. I think for 22 guys, they mostly don't, well, I guess I'll say for 20 to 19 or 20 guys, they've pretty much got their stuff locked down. But for everybody else, you're 100% right. They're fighting for their job, basically. CJ, we'll close with this. Same way I close with Scott. 3 quick questions. I want a surprise guy to make the team, a surprise cut, and 1 bold preseason prediction. It doesn't have to be about the preseason, but at least a prediction made before the preseason.
All righty. A surprise guy to make the team. I'm going to go with Foley Fatukasi because I think that he's impressed so far in camp. The defensive line is really starting to come along. You're really starting to see some chemistry between Nathan Shepard, Henry Anderson, Foley Fatukasi, Leonard Williams, really setting a very good example. Also, Steve McClendon. So he's my surprise guy because a lot of people haven't really been talking about him, but he's quietly been doing work on the sideline. And actually, believe it or not, I have to add one more player to this one as well. He's a former New England Patriot, and the Jets picked him up for a song. Antonio Garcia. Everybody needs to look out for him because this kid is coming into camp with a chip on his shoulder. He feels like he shouldn't have been cut by the Patriots. They cut him for medical reasons. He's medically cleared to play, and this kid is coming hungry and looking to beat somebody's ass. So you know what? Any big, solid, mean offensive lineman that the Jets can get on their side to help that offensive line along after the dumpster fire that it was last year, hey, I'll take whatever I can get my hands on at this point.
All right. Do you have a bold prediction?
Well, one guy who I think was going to get cut because I know that was your second question, and I hate to say this because I love the guy and I'm rooting for the guy.
Don't you say Terrell Pryor?
I think that Lorenzo Malden might be left off the 53-man roster.
Okay, good. Not Terrell Pryor. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I think that Lorenzo Malden, if he cannot find a way to shake that rust off and to get himself back up to game speed by at least preseason game number 3, to really make a case for him to stay on this roster, we may be saying goodbye to Lorenzo Malden. And he was brought in specifically to be that specialist pass rusher in Todd Bowles' defense. That's what he was brought in for. And he just has not been able to do it. It's like the poor guy has just been snake bit with injuries. So we hope he can make a push. He can make a case for himself. But I think that he's going to end up being a surprise cut. Now for my bold prediction. Jets are going 10-6 this year.
Woo!
And they will, in fact, make the playoffs.
Oh, my God.
I don't think that's that bold. I really don't think that's that bold.
I don't think it is in a weak AFC for them to do around the 9-7, 10-6 thing, especially if Darnold is playing like we expect him to, because he's also a rookie quarterback, so presumably he's going to get better each week. Yeah, playoffs, I mean, I'm the most confident. I'm the most confident that they'll make the playoffs probably since maybe 2013. 2012 obviously wasn't a huge year, but then there was still some hope. It's like, well, we're only a year off of AFC championships. We just kind of had a down year, whatever. So I'll say 2013. Really, since then, you're right. This is the most confident I've been to make the playoffs, even though 2015 we actually should have made it. I struggle saying it.
I have another one that I just thought of, and I hope you guys are sitting down for this one. No, I'm not saying Super Bowl. I'm not going that bold yet. The Jets will, in fact, sweep the Patriots this year. They will.
Wrong.
They're not going to sweep them. In my mind, I don't think they're going to sweep. I think you're right.
Bold.
I think they'll get one.
I think they will.
I think they're going to get one.
I'll explain to you why.
When was the last time they swept the Patriots?
They haven't swept the Patriots. It's got to be at least 10 years. So you know what? They do. And I think that this is the time that Father Time catches up to Tom Brady, because especially with that wide receiving core in shambles, Julian Edelman suspended for 4 games. Granted, you have to worry about him and Chris Hogan when they come back. But when you go and take a look at their roster of wide receivers, that they're bringing Eric Decker in for a tryout, I really don't think Sugar Dick is going to help them in the slightest.
Yes.
I think that Tom Brady is going to get beaten. I think that this is the year the Patriots take a step backward.
Wow.
Okay, and I'm telling you, I think that the very last game of the year in Foxborough, playoffs on the line, it could be it could be a battle between the division and a wild card. And I'll tell you something right now. If the Jets are even in contention for the division and they're going into that game, I put my money on Gang Green. Because I just don't think that Tom Brady has enough weapons, despite that Patriot mystique. I think this is when we take the Patriot mystique and shove it up their ass. And I think this is the year that we get back, especially for the blown touchdown call last year, for all the years of futility, for the 45-3 beatings that we've had to put up with over the past couple of years. This is the year the Jets make up for it. And this is the year Tom Brady gets that punch in the face that he's had coming to him for the past 10 years. And the Jets are going to be the team to give it to him. That's
CJ,
my take.
CJ, I like your thinking.
About how CJ and I said sugar dick at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, great minds think alike.
Great minds think
listen,
alike.
real quick, I know you guys are up against it, but I do want to announce something. The Jets Factor podcast has partnered up with StatementGames.com. We have a very exciting contest that I want you and your listeners to be a part of. Okay,
all right.
We have procured 2 tickets. Would you stop it, Kyle? Come on now. All right, so here's the contest. All right, we have procured 2 tickets. New York Jets, New England Patriots, November 25th, in the 300 section. Okay, it's Thanksgiving weekend. All right, 2 tickets. Statement Games and Jets Factor podcast are going to be given away to one lucky listener. And all you got to do to get in on this contest is send a text. You're going to send a text to the following number, 516-207-0905. All you got to do is text the word Jets, Jets. You're going to get a prompt. You go to StatementGames.com. You put your name. You put your email address in. That is all you have to do to enter. The winner will be announced on our show Thanksgiving week. We're probably going to end up doing a show that Monday. So that way, if someone out of the tri-state area does happen to win this contest, they will be able to make arrangements to get their flight, to come in, to spend time in the city. But they'll have 2 tickets, New York Jets, New England Patriots. It's the first meeting between these 2 teams for this season. That stadium is going to be rocking. And let me tell you, I'm so blessed that the Jets Factor podcast is going to be able to bring this experience, to give this experience to one lucky listener. So, again, that telephone number is 516-207-0905. Text the word Jets. Get in on this, guys.
Damn it. I texted the wrong number. I just accidentally texted the wrong person. 0907. I thought it was 0507. All right, let me try.
No.
CJ, I like your thinking, man. I think that you're right. The end is near. I'm thinking 2019 is the year that the Jets, that the Patriots fall and that the Jets are going to make the playoffs. But
I just texted a completely random person. It just said Jets.
Wow. CJ, thank you for calling in, man. Really quickly, where can our listeners find your podcast and follow you on Twitter?
All right. Well, my name is CJ the Painkiller DeSimone. I'm the co-host of the Jets Factor podcast on SoundCloud.com. We are also available on the Grandstand Sports Network, thegruelingtruth.com, and now Sports War Radio and the UNB Sports Network. All you have to do, just Google the Jets Factor podcast, and you will be able to find us. You could always shoot the show an email at thejetsfactor@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitter at CNC Jets Factor. Follow my partner in crime, Carlos the Hitman Sardinas, at CS Sardinas, and follow yours truly at JetsFan0523. Gentlemen, you have an open invitation to come on my show. You guys get in touch with me, DM me, email me, whatever. I will work with your schedule by hook or by crook. If we have to record it a later time and then post it on the show, by hook or by crook, I want you guys on my show. Let's make it happen.
I like it. CJ, thank you for coming on the show, man. Hopefully we'll hear from you relatively soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a great night.
All right, you too. All right, that was a really long show, and considering we did over an hour yesterday with Manish, we're coming up on close to 4 hours of podcasting this week. So, Kyle, I think we're going to end it here. I think that was a good place to end it.
I'm tired.
I am tired. I realize for you it's almost 11 o'clock. We'll be on the same time zone for the first time in 3 weeks. Just recording episodes.
You'll still get the time wrong.
Yeah, probably. All right, like Geno Smith. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to another. That was a nice reference there. Thank you for listening to another episode.
The dick pics.
Oh my God. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jet Take Podcast. You can follow us at the Jet Take on Twitter. You can find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I posted all of our links actually on our Twitter today, but those include iTunes, Turn on the Jets, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube. We're all over the place. Just look up the Jet Take. Next week we'll be live with Chris Nimbley, another Jets beat writer, to give his thoughts on the week of practices. So this is going to be our reoccurring theme for the next few weeks of training camp, just to have a Jets beat writer on, give their observations of the week of training camp, and share some insight with us. Thank you. We'd like to thank everybody for keeping our listens up. We're growing. We had our most popular day of downloads yesterday on the Manish interview. So if you haven't checked that out, please make sure to go do it. I think it's one of our better interviews. And for those who did, thank you so much. All the listens are greatly appreciated. Even if you listen to 2 minutes or the full 3 hours of this podcast or the hour of Manish's yesterday, you were greatly appreciated. Anyways, I think that's where we're going to leave today's show. We'll leave you with the best chant in the National Football League. Green and white scrimmage this Saturday. First NFL game in months between the Chicago Bears and the Baltimore Ravens tomorrow. Football is finally back, baby. Again, as I said, best chant, National Football League. 1 week, back with Chris Nimbley. We'll talk to you then.
Timing is everything, you cucks.